All right, everybody, welcome to the Statutory Planning Committee meeting of Wednesday, the 20th of June 2026. I'd like to welcome all of those attending in person today and those attending online. The meeting will be live streamed and it is available for viewing via the committee website and committee members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them with their deliberations. I'd like to acknowledge that we're meeting on the land people of the Noongar Nation and pay respects to elders past and present. Apologies and leave of absence today. We do have apologies from Member Moore. We have Member Franklin attending online. Welcome, Member Franklin. And we have all other members attending in person today. Disclosures of interest. I have 3 today. In relation to item 3.3, the 11B development application for Martinique News, Commissioner Heron has declared an indirect pecuniary interest in that his former employer Urbis is the proponent and he is currently contracted by Urbis on another project and I understand will step out on this item. Yes. On item 3.4, the part 11B for Canning Highway in East Fremantle, Commissioner Lakey has declared a direct pecuniary interest in that he is the chair of Foundation Housing Limited and Foundation Housing is the applicant for this Part 11B development and therefore will be stepping out on this item. In relation to item 4.2, the City of Cockburn Local Planning Scheme number 13, Member Harmon has declared a perceived impartiality interest in that he is employed by Satterley Property Group and he is working on a service commercial development on Armadale Road in Jandakot. The project passed the planning stage with construction about to commence. The proposed scheme shifts the land out of the special use zone into a special control area. However, the underlying planning requirements in the scheme remain unchanged. On that basis, I am happy to accept this as a perceived impartiality interest unless there are any concerns raised by committee members. Thank you very much. Are there any other declarations of interest? Thank you very much. And noting in relation to item 3.4, the part 11B for the proposed residential apartments on Canning Highway in East Fremantle, the West Australian Planning Commission is both landowner and decision maker. This is an interest in common shared by members and is not considered to prejudice our ability to impartially determine the matter within the planning framework. Members, are there any disclosures of interest? Representation? None today, thank you. And declaration of due consideration. Can all members please indicate they've received and considered the agenda ahead of today's meeting? Thank you very much all. Noting there has been additional information for members provided in response to questions asked ahead of the meeting. And in relation to the minutes of Wednesday, the 27th of May, 2026 for confirmation, are there any matters to raise arising from the minutes? And if I could please have a mover and seconder to endorse the minutes. Moved by Member Knight, seconded by Commissioner Brooks. Is there any dissent? Thank you, the minutes are carried. We will now go to deputations and presentations. We do have a few to work through today and we have restructured to allow the statutory instruments to be considered first, including the confidential items, given that those deputies may wish to then move on with their day, and we'll then deal with the Part 11B deputations. And I will hand over to Jonathan Mesnard to take us through the deputations.
Thank you, Chair. I welcome everyone who is present today in order to make a deputation, either in person or via Zoom. You will be invited to either join the table or receive a panelist invitation if you're attending via Zoom to deliver your deputation. You have been advised of your allocated time, which will be managed by a timer appearing on the screen. If you do have a PowerPoint presentation that's been provided to us, this will be displayed on the screen throughout your deputation presentation, and it's just requested that you advise as you wish to progress through the slides. For our first verbal deputation regarding item 3.1, Standard Structure Plan, Hazelmere Special Use Area 16 Structure Plan, we have Principal Brentia Diggerdon via Zoom. Brentia, you're about to receive a panelist invitation. Should be coming through now. Looks like that was declined. Just going to try one more time, please. Give her a call. Sure. I need to move on to the next deputation and come back. Yep. We'll try that again early. We'll move on to also regarding item 3.1. We have Kate Heron and Mark Hullett. Sending you a panelist invitation now. Justin has accepted. Hi, Kate. I'm just sending you the panelist invitation. Is it coming through? Okay, looks like you're coming through. I'll hang up and let you start. If you can unmute and turn on your camera, please. You should be unmuted.
Yeah, is the camera?
It might just have your background. But
There.
perfect, thank you.
Here I am.
We're ready to start when you are.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Kate Heron, and I speak on behalf of the Trillion Trees community and board as the Fundraising and Communications Coordinator. I appear today to raise a formal and serious objection to this structure plan amendment on the basis of clear planning non-compliance, unacceptable traffic risk, and failure to properly assess the impacts on sensitive community land uses. Trillion Trees is a not-for-profit organisation which has been based at Lot 2 Stirling Crescent, directly opposite the area of the structure plan, for 40 years. Every week, 120 volunteers, including the elderly, people with disabilities and mental health conditions, attend our community nursery to participate in conservation activities. Many arrive on foot from nearby public transport stops. These participants receive direct mental health and wellbeing benefits from the quiet rural surroundings which we have established over 40 years. Trillion Trees has established itself as a community asset, providing environmental and community services which are central to the amenity of the locality, the social fabric of the community, the daily pedestrian environment, and the character of Stirling Crescent. The structure plan amendments presented today show a total disregard for our community contribution over the past 40 years, or the impacts of this development on the future of our organisation and its members. They go even further to damage amenity and the environment than the 2021 version, which was rejected by this panel. According to the Hazelmere Area Structure Plan, the HESP, this site is located within the HEA buffer area. The intent of Precinct 3 is to accommodate land uses that do not impact the amenity of the locality, particularly the residential areas to the west, and to act as a buffer between those residential areas and the industrial area to the east. The introduction of a highway service zone is of significant community concern and directly in contradiction to the intent of the HESP. This variation creates a stark and abrupt change in land use, allowing commercial activities to directly abut existing residential dwellings. This contradicts the fundamental logic of the HESP, compromises neighbourhood character, and fails to properly manage the noise, light, and aesthetic impacts on existing residents and land users. As the panel will know, amenity is a subjective standard with many definitions. The likelihood of the proposed activity causing a nuisance is one way of testing whether or not the activity will have a detrimental effect on the amenity of the locality. The proposal for highway services will certainly cause a nuisance. As an organisation dedicated to healing landscapes and connecting communities through our love of trees, we must highlight the devastating impact of the recent land clearance of these sites is having on native wildlife. After vegetation was cleared in September, endangered black cockatoos continue to return to the land, attempting to feed on the dead trees. Their cries
Kate, sorry, it's Emma Cold, Chair, speaking to you. You have gone over time, and whilst I do appreciate the issues that you're raising now about the clearing of the site and the impact that you wish to discuss, that's not something that the Commission is considering today or has any scope to deal with. So if you have concluded your statements in relation to the structure plan, I will then need to stop here and see if there are any questions of you.
I do have a further statement with relation to the structure plan, if I may.
If you could just really briefly summarise that, thank you.
I think it's important to note that previous versions of this structure plan for this locality included the provision of a green corridor of native vegetation, and we implore the panel to insist this green corridor is restored to this version of the structure plan.
Thank you very much, Kate, for your deputation today. Members, do you have any questions for Kate? No questions. Thank you very much, Kate.
Thank you, Kate. I haven't been able to get through to our first verbal deputation maker just yet. I'll keep trying. In the meantime, we'll move.
Let me just try. Yeah. So okay. You need to hear from them. Are they responding to?
No. On to phone call. Responding to the invitation. So.
All right. I'll have to move on then.
The circumstances. Oh, sorry. The invite has just been accepted.
I'm so sorry for that. I had an unexpected meeting drop in, so I just had to step away for a second, but I apologise for that.
Okay,
Thank you.
Can you turn your camera on, please?
I will try, sorry.
You should have just received a prompt.
Yes, I did. Thank you. There you go. Are you ready for me to commence?
Yeah, perfect. Ready when you are.
Thank you. Good evening, good afternoon, morning, sorry, Chair and Committee members. I'm Ren Shea Diggett. I'm the principal of Helena River Waldorf School, located on Stirling Crescent in Hazelmere. I wish to speak regarding the Hazelmere Special Use Area 16 structure plan. Firstly, I want to make it clear that our school is not opposed to appropriate development. We recognise the importance of economic growth and employment opportunities within Hazelmere. However, we are concerned that the structure plan does not adequately recognise the presence of existing sensitive land uses, particularly our school. Our school is an established educational facility serving more than 144 students and their families. Our children spend a significant amount of time learning outdoors and engaging with the natural environment, making issues such as traffic, heavy vehicle movements, noise, lighting and general amenity particularly important considerations. As the structure plan will guide future development in this area for many years to come, it is important that the needs of existing community assets are considered at this stage. My concern is that the structure plan does not clearly demonstrate how future industrial and commercial development will interface with nearby educational uses, which is not only our school, there is another school very close by, nor how the cumulative impacts of increased development on the school environment have been assessed. In particular, I believe greater consideration should be given to traffic and safety impacts, especially during school drop-off and pick-up times, as well as appropriate buffering and protection from potential amenity impacts. I would also like to address very briefly a statement that has been made a few times during previous planning discussions, namely that the school should know that it's located in an industrial area and should have planned appropriately. The school is not located within an industrial zone. We are situated in a special use area and have operated on this site for many years. We are not a proposed future land use seeking protection. We are an existing and established educational facility with recognised planning rights and a long-standing connection to the Hazelmere community. This distinction is important because planning decisions should not assume that industrial development automatically takes precedence over existing community infrastructure. Schools are recognised as sensitive land uses precisely because they accommodate children and require a safe and appropriate environment in which to operate. The school has previously raised concerns regarding development proposal within this locality, and those discussions highlighted the importance of ensuring that existing community assets are not overlooked. I respectfully submit that greater submission and consideration should be given to how future industrial and commercial development will interface with existing educational uses. I therefore ask the committee to ensure that Helena River Waldorf School is expressly recognised as an existing sensitive land use within the structure plan framework, and that appropriate mechanisms are in place to protect the safety, amenity and well-being of the children and families who use our school every day. Planning for growth and protecting existing community assets are not mutually exclusive goals. Good planning should achieve both. I urge the panel to defer approval of the structure plan until such time as proper, meaningful community consultation has occurred with our school given precedence as an existing organisation. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Your deputation today. Members, do you have any questions? Thank you very much. I think you've been clear in your request of the committee.
Thank you, Renshaw. For our next deputation, also regarding item 3.1, in person we have Monique Thompson. Please come forward. We're ready to begin when you are.
Good morning, Chair and members of the Statutory Planning Committee. My name is Monique from Rise Urban, and I appear on behalf of the owners of lots 651 and 39 Stirling Crescent, Hazelmere, which together comprise approximately 50% of the structure plan area. I thank you for the opportunity to address the committee briefly today. We wish to express our support for the officer recommendation and in particular welcome DPLH's support for retaining the proposed highway service outcome over lot 651. This issue has been a key point of discussion throughout the assessment of the structure plan, and we would like to acknowledge and thank DPLH officers for the time they have taken to engage with us, representatives of key landowners within the structure plan area. We've also been working closely with the City of Swan to help bring forward commercial and industrial land supply in the area, together with essential road infrastructure that will support delivery of the vision set out in the Hazelmere Enterprise Area Structure Plan, endorsed by the Commission in 2011. We are pleased that the agenda report recognises that a commercial interface in this location is an appropriate response to the site context and that it provides a suitable transition between the industrial core to the east and the existing residential development to the south. We also acknowledge the recommended modifications to the structure plan. On balance, we consider the officer recommendation provides a suitable framework for the structure plan to proceed while retaining the key planning outcomes sought for lot 651. Accordingly, we are generally supportive of the recommendation before the committee today. I do not propose to take up any more of the committee's time, but I'd be very happy to answer any questions members may have. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Monique, for your deputation. Members, would you for any questions? Thank you, Commissioner. And then Commissioner Lakey.
Thank you very much for your deputation. In terms of some of the items that have been raised, particularly around the issue of interface, are you able to speak to how you would consider the proposed structure plan and the introduction of those commercial uses addressing the issues of interface and particularly interplay with sensitive uses?
Certainly. So the structure plan provides for the requirement to prepare a local development plan, which would require more intensive development controls to be considered for those lots that are directly abutting a sensitive land use interface, such as residential or the school.
Thank you. Further to that, if I may, through the chair, the notion of highway commercial seems counterintuitive given not on a highway. Can you perhaps talk through the reasons why that particular zoning was identified and used?
My understanding, not being the proponent of the structure plan, but my understanding of that is that the current zonings under the City of Swans local planning scheme are quite restricted, where it would normally be a service commercial outcome. Under the city's scheme, it's referred to as a highway service, which can be slightly misleading, I think, in that respect.
Thank you. And finally, through the chair, obviously, initially, as part of the concepts, this was being looked at for residential uses. And as obviously representing the owner of the site, can you perhaps talk why residential has not been pursued in this instance?
Residential was considered for the site in the first instance. Unfortunately, due to the heavy infrastructure constraints of the area, we have several Western Power easements traversing the land, 330 kilowatt and 132 kilowatt. Voltage lines traversing the land, in addition to bushfire as well. So a residential outcome for that site, it would be highly constrained and would not be considered an amenable outcome for those residents residing in that area.
Thank you.
As well, so yes.
Are there any further questions? Thank you for the deputation.
The next deputation, also regarding item 3.1, we have Justin Hanson via Zoom. Justin, if you could please unmute and turn on your camera. Thank you. And the presentation is just loading up now. We're ready when you are. Sorry, Justin, we can't hear you. You're not muted, but there's no audio. I can't hear you, I'm afraid. I can see that you're not muted. I'm not sure what the issue would be. I might have to dial you in.
See one today, John. People going up to meetings, etc.
Hi, Justin, Jonathan here. In the circumstances, are you happy to do this via speakerphone? Yep, that's done. I'll put you on speakerphone now. Well, not ideal, obviously, but ready when you are.
Yeah, I've been here. So I've got a echo cam.
Yeah, hit mute.
Justin, you just need to turn off your volume in the background on your computer or device.
Like that. Thank you.
Please go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I appear on behalf of the landowner group in support of the Hazelmere structure plan. So we represent the two southern landowners south of Bushmead Road. The structure plan implements the established framework for the broader area and provides a coordinated outcome for a constrained transitional area between industrial and residential to the west, and sets out a mix of employment, service, commercial and residential uses aligned with the anticipated road network for Hazelmere. Before turning to the broader matters, I'd like to clarify a question about traffic volumes on what's deemed Eric Lumsden Drive, which is the key north-south road. There's an inconsistency in the planning report where the short-term and long-term ultimate traffic figures, I think, were combined. But just to reiterate, the validated design volume is approximately 3,200 vehicles per day, which is consistent with the traffic impact assessment, rather than the 6,000 that's actually noted in the report, which is probably a little bit on my behalf being overzealous in adding all the numbers up. But the 3,200 just confirms that the road will operate as the district distributor and well within the means of that road infrastructure. The structure plan also provides a north-south connection that will reduce heavy vehicle movements on existing residential streets. And if you may turn to the last page of the deputation, which is the overall structure plan, like the district structure plan area, should be page 5, yes. So the structure plan provides that north-south connection. As you can see, the area is industrial focused, and this structure plan is basically the last piece of the puzzle and then transition between the residential area to the west and the industrial area to the east. So in relation to the Steiner School, I know it's noted that the school has participated in the planning process and has raised objections at various stages along the journey. The school is located on land identified for industrial purposes, so it's special use, but the long-term area, education being one land use, but industrial being another use that's permitted in these areas. So its establishment and subsequent development have occurred within the broader planning context. So this plan has been available for 20 years. Stirling Crescent wraps around to Bushmead Road. Now, the majority of traffic we plan and the way the traffic modelling has happened is Bushmead Road will be the key source for traffic onto the freeway system. So Stirling Crescent is equally an important road, but Bushmead is the main traffic corridor. So while the school has concerns, this road network as presented has been in operation or has been planned for 20 years. So we respect the city's concerns, but overall, this is the last piece of the puzzle.
Justin, I might have to stop you there because we do have a very busy meeting today. We've already had some delays, so we will have to go to questions now. So members, do you have any questions of Justin? Go ahead, Commissioner Herron.
Justin, thank you for your deputation. And given obviously your direct involvement, if I can put to you in terms of, and the planning context is fully understood, particularly on the traffic component. In relation to the land uses, however, and in acknowledgement of the existing sensitive uses, what controls, if any, are being proposed to manage that northern interface? Is there anything proposed as part of the structure plan?
There is. If you go back to the slide before the current one, there was an opposite constraints mapping that we did for the site. Now the northern landowner, they were the original proponent of the structure plan. That landowner had passed away, and the structure plan didn't go anywhere. So the landowners to the south picked up the pieces, got us involved to prepare that. So the northern land and the arrangement there was basically honouring the original proposal of the original proponent. So in terms of interface, the highway commercial, or basically service commercial type uses were in there, and there was the opportunity to realign Western Power to KV structure. So along Eric Street, which is on that plan, you can see the area sort of shaded the darker grey. That's got LDP provisions and general provisions to avoid or to create a buffer to those residential areas, and that's by means of landscaping, service corridors, and also just general setbacks to building and putting car parking in those areas. So and that would be controlled through LDPs, which would then be also control through DAs. So there's 3 layers of planning approval and noise mitigation and traffic mitigation, which can resolve those items. But the structure plan is robust enough to offer set provisions, but also set the provisions for an LDP to fully integrate that service commercial use with industrial to the south and west.
Thank you. Through the chair, just in relation, the industrial land identified in the structure plan is light industrial, though. Can you just confirm that?
It's light industrial is the area east of the north-south primary road. Anything west of, from an industrial type use, is highway commercial. So your service commercial type uses. And then further south, it's that residential interface. So the light industry only applies to the east side. And we added additional provisions into the structure plan to try and mitigate that noise and amenity risk by removing the truck depot land use.
Okay.
But the current officer report has recommended that be removed.
Thank you.
Justin, that's quite helpful detail. Are there any further questions? Thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you, Justin. Moving on to for our next deputation regarding item 3.2, Shire of Christmas Island Draft Local Planning Strategy Certification to Advertise. We have Chris Sue online. Just getting a panelist invite now. Joining, thank you. Perfect. And just unmute and turn on your camera when you can, please, Chris. We can hear you and we can see you.
Yes. Hello. Good morning. My name is Chris. I'm from the Shire of Christmas Island. Hello, Chairperson Cole. Today I have the privilege of presenting to you from Ngunnawal country out in Canberra, where the Shire of Christmas Island is making our annual visit to see our member and our minister. We thank you very much. We thank you very much for the opportunity to make this deputation to you today. They told me I'll only have three minutes, so I'll get straight to it. The Shire of Christmas Island is it's a territory of the Commonwealth of Australia, so we're not formally part of Western Australia, but we require services from the WA State Government to extend to us and our neighbouring Cocos Keeling Islands, and the WAPC is one of the great bodies whose jurisdiction covers us. We acknowledge the fantastic guidance we've received from DPLH as well as WALGA, Western Australian Local Government Association team, in helping guide us through the process of making sure that we're aligned with the framework as best as we can. We don't have all resources out in the external territories, and we thank very much the guidance that DPLH have provided in the process of getting this to your stage today. The island is a very complex territory with a lot of stakeholders who are not on the island but have a great interest in what happens on there. And the Shire of Christmas Island must take a great consideration that to ensure that the needs of IoT residents and Christmas Island residents are kept at the forefront, while there are other non-Christmas Island stakeholders who also have a skin in the game when it comes to land planning, especially on the islands. I dropped a one-pager with a couple of graphics you might see on page 34 of your agenda, just to show the type of place that we're planning for. We must plan for the island, or the island plans for us. I believe very much that the people should determine the fate of the territory, and not the territory the fate of the people. We don't have the ability to elect people in Western Australia, so we only have the local council chambers and then Parliament House right above us. There's nothing in between. So when it comes to being able to create a statutory document as important as a local planning strategy, local planning scheme, strategic community plan, the participation of residents and council is very, 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 very high. We take the community consultation very greatly important to make sure that our views are put in there, because we will have Defence and Home Affairs and Department of Infrastructure put in their 2 cents as well. And we liaise very carefully with our Commonwealth colleagues to make sure that their interests are also documented in the statutory plans that we have. We have 4 graphics at the bottom that shows, what happens on CI is very weird and wacky. And of course, I've made the biggest image our crab migration, which we have to plan for as well. We plan to do land planning to ensure that there are environmental corridors enough and so on, to ensure that our wildlife is also looked after, because they obviously can't share their voices. So I'd like to be able to ask, answer any questions you guys might have about Christmas Island, our local planning strategy proposal, or the relationships that we have to keep with a complex range of stakeholders. I'd be very happy to take on WPC questions for you today, and thank you very much again for accepting our deputation at the agenda today.
Thank you very much, Chris. It's Emma Cole, Chair, talking to you now. You are our most successful online deputation for the day, so well done to you. I will now see if there are any questions of you. Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Yeah, Chris, thank you for your deputation. I have had the good fortune of visiting Christmas Island and, in fact, assisting with planning there previously. However, I just wanted to check. My understanding from the background is that there is a long-term intention to build the population up to 5,000 people. I just wanted to check in terms of the key employment drivers. Was that obviously with the changes with the environmental requirements, etc., is that being seen as being driven particularly by federal government activity, or are there other key economic drivers locally?
There is significant works on now to help Christmas Island get back to pivot our economy away from only the mining company. Phosphate mining company is the largest private employer on the island. We have second best is the Shire, and the Immigration Department, of course, employed, I think it was 450 full-time employed actually during the peak of their usage. We are looking to really seriously vamp up, along with the Cocos Keeling Islands, our tourism industry. We think we have something very special that nowhere else in Australia, or maybe the rest of the planet, has actually. Cocos Keeling, did you have time to go to Cocos as well, Committee Member Heron?
Yes, because you have to go there, and if you're going to one, you have to go to the other.
Yes. Australia's best kept secret is the Cocos Keeling Islands and Christmas Island, and we want to get the secret to come out, and we are very sure that we'll be able to pivot very meaningfully to get up to the upper limit of what we are planning for. Also, as members may know, the charm map was recently completed for the Cocos Keeling Islands, and there is some early discussions we are engaging with the people of Cocos Keeling Islands and a neighbouring shire, that should the time come for them to have to choose to relocate, that we would like to welcome our neighbours into our home if they don't want to go down to the mainland. There's been a very century-long connection between the two islands. As a matter of fact, Cocos celebrates their 200-year bicentenary this year, actually, and we're going to be there as well. You guys should come for the party; it would be great. So potentially that could be a rather not insignificant number of people who may choose to relocate elsewhere to the ILT territories instead of coming back to the mainland. So we are planning for a lot of stakeholders on and off the island. Thanks. I hope to answer your question.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? And we don't have any other questions for you, Chris, but I would like to say I really wanted to congratulate you on reaching this milestone with your strategy. I think that it's a really interesting time for the island, and the considerations that you're giving to employment diversity and the issue that you've just mentioned. That's really interesting future ahead of you, and it's a pleasure to provide the planning service to you and your island to work together in this way. So I just wanted to say thank you, and forward to dealing with this item further on today.
Thank you very much. And I think you will probably be seeing a local planning strategy from the Shire of Cocos Keeling Islands in the medium-term future, as well as they digest their charm map, and they'll come present at your lovely committee.
Great. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. For our next deputation, it'll be regarding item 4.2, the City of Coburn Local Planning Scheme number 13, approval to advertise. We have Donna Di and David Reynolds in person. Sorry. Wrong order. I apologize. City of Coburn, sorry, item 4.1. City of Coburn Town Planning Scheme number 3, amendment number 179, recommendation to Minister. Yeah, Jared Ross and David Land, if you could please come forward.
All deputations from this point forward are in person for anyone wondering.
Ready when you are.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee members. My name is Jared Ross. I'm an Associate Director with TDD Planning. With me today is David Lang from TDD's Advisory. We represent the Schaefer Corporation, opponent of this amendment and owner of the South Connect estate. We speak in support of the officer recommendation for final approval of 179 to the City of Coburn scheme. South Connect estate has been planned for some time as a service commercial and light industrial precinct within the Jandakot industrial area. Planning framework is already in place. Following previous amendments to the scheme, subdivision has been approved for 5 super lots and the internal road network. There is an approved local development plan and development approval has been obtained for the first stages of development. Subdivision works are now complete. Delivery of the first stage of development is anticipated in late 2026 and tenants have been confirmed for the first stages. Have the next slide, please. So the estate is no longer a theoretical planning exercise. It's an active development precinct with approved development, completed subdivision works and a pathway to delivery, and we have buildings coming out of the ground at the moment. Next slide. Amendment 179 doesn't seek to change the fundamental role of the estate. The existing additional use provisions already allow uses such as showroom, warehouse, storage yard, nursery and masonry production. The amendment proposes a modest expansion of land use flexibility to respond to market and tenant demand and to support business growth and employment within a precinct that is already planned and approved for this general purpose. Slide, please. The proposed additional uses include a limited range of convenience, commercial, showroom-related and light or service industrial uses, including fast food outlet, lunch bar, motor vehicle sales, private recreation, trade display, hardware store, veterinary services and light and service industry. These uses are complementary to the intended function of the South Connect estate. They'll help serve tenants, workers and visitors to the precinct, as well as the surrounding community. Importantly, these are not uses that will create land use conflict or unacceptable environmental impacts. Future development will still require development approval and will remain subject to the local development plan and the relevant additional use conditions within the scheme. These controls will continue to manage matters such as amenity, access, servicing, groundwater protection and environmental interface. Next slide, please. In closing, Schaefer Corporation supports the officer recommendation for final approval. The amendment is minor and a logical expansion of land use flexibility for an existing service commercial and light industrial precinct. It follows extensive engagement with the City of Coburn and the DPLH and is consistent with the state planning framework, Perth and Peel at 3.5 million and the city's local planning strategy. For these reasons, we respectfully request that the committee support the officer recommendation and recommend final approval for this. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the deputation. Members, are there any questions? Thank you. Just in terms of the motor vehicle land use, I think there was some discussion in the report around the sensitivity around servicing. Do you know whether there will be any plans for servicing of vehicles to happen as part of that land use if it is if it does eventuate?
Are you talking about vehicle service?
Sorry.
Talking about vehicle servicing as part
It's
of that.
vehicle servicing.
There is the potential for incidental vehicle servicing associated with it, I would expect. But that would be subject to approval. It's a discretionary land use, so it would be subject to assessment.
I think that's been raised as one of
servicing, but
that's just been raised as one of the potential sensitivities, given it's the public drinking water source area. So you're aware of that?
yes.
Okay, thank you. Members, any other questions? Right, thank you very much for your deputation.
Thank you.
For our next deputation, City of Coburn Local Planning Scheme number 13, to advertise item 4.2. We have Donna Di and David Reynolds in person. If you'll please come forwards. Ready when you are.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Whilst the City appreciates the work undertaken by officers to date and supports most of the proposed modifications, we request consideration of several key matters prior to adoption for advertising as outlined in the following slides. Slide, please. Based on legal advice, the City is concerned the triggers requiring structure planning are not robust enough in the event applicants seek to avoid the process altogether. This could be easily addressed via insertion of a general clause. Importantly, it does not require a special control area as originally proposed, and discretion would still remain under the regulations to consider subdivision or development without a structure plan where appropriate. Next slide, please. The City recognises the importance of maximising infill opportunities by reducing barriers and simplifying requirements. Therefore, whilst it will remove an instrument to incentivise a better standard of development, the City does not object to the removal of split codings. However, it is requested the middle coding be adopted for the R30, 40, 60. These areas contain large, irregular lots with fragmented ownership across broad precincts where a mix of typologies and codings was anticipated. Next slide, please. Extensive R60 development would be unsuitable for the road network and local context and would create parking issues and substantial tree canopy loss. R40 would also be more consistent with the vision established through the various planning processes and community consultation. This just shows the precincts that I'm referring to. Next slide, please. The City is supportive of reducing the use of special control areas, but is concerned some pertinent requirements are incapable of being replaced by other planning instruments. This includes provisions to address EPA, tribunal and/or community commitments to facilitate the urban development zoning. The Roe Highway example shown is a live concern. Without the special control area, the City may be compromised in ensuring a coordinated outcome. This includes a continuous ecological link that is critically important to the community. Whilst it had been suggested such provisions could be included in Schedule 4, additional site and development requirements, these provisions specifically relate to development and are unsuitable to guide structure plan preparation. Next slide, please. The City is supportive of structure plan rationalisations and has a strong record of doing so. However, we have concerns regarding implications of premature rationalisation where development has not sufficiently progressed, demonstrated in the examples provided. This includes impeding developer flexibility. We are not seeking changes at this stage, but we're foreshadowing an intent to scrutinise additional rationalisations further during advertising and will likely request changes prior to final approval. Next slide, please. The City is concerned proposed changes for privately owned portions of high voltage power lines are too big and pose significant amenity concerns to abutting residential development. They also compromise a key direction of the City's local planning and natural area management strategies to create ecological and active transport corridors through these areas. Next slide, please. For this reason, the City recommends including the wording of Special Use 15 or adding conditions to address these issues. Thank you for your time today. Here with me is the City's Manager of Strategic Planning, David Reynolds, and we're both happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. That was a very concise and considered deputation. Key points. I really do appreciate that. Members, do you have any questions for the City of Cockburn? Go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Thank you very much for your deputation today. A number of them are well understood. I did wish to get a bit more information, however, around the deletion of the special control areas and better understand what you feel is, what is the components of that particular vehicle that you feel is critical, particularly, and again, because I am quite mindful around the former Roe Highway reserve areas and the need for a coordinated outcome. Can you just perhaps expand upon what it is in terms of, you mentioned about the inclusion of requirements from EPA and others. Why is it that particular mechanism is the only one that you feel is able to do that?
It's just a gap in a way. I think Schedule 4 has been, as I said, suggested to be used, but then when you look at the operative provisions for that, specifically relates to guiding development. So the concern is that it would be ineffective in guiding structure planning. So what could potentially happen is someone comes to lodge a structure plan and they just want to comply with livable neighbourhoods, and some of these, what might be seen as additional things, might be difficult to require at that time if there isn't guidance, and we don't see anywhere else it could sit within the scheme, basically.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And there was also the structure plan rationalisation. So you have actually identified all those areas that you feel aren't at the point able to be rationalised. Is that correct?
We got a most comprehensive list only on the same day that the agenda came out. We're making our way through that. Most appear to be probably okay, but there are some that appear to include local reserves, in particular road reserves and public open space, that if we were to accept and proceed to final approval in that manner, we could be creating cases for injurious affection. But as you saw in the other example, it's not just about the concerns for us, it's also about a loss of developer flexibility. And the Tony Ailes structure plan site is a good example. The modifications as they stand at the moment ask us to rationalise the structure as it currently sits. In addition to there being a public road in there, we're actually halfway through a process to revise that structure plan and shift the zones around. And if it had already been hard zoned, which we had previously considered, that flexibility there, they would have to go through a scheme amendment process, much more arduous process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? We'll raise and discuss the matters that you've raised in your deputation when we come to the item. So thank you very much for your deputation today.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For our next deputation regarding item 3.3, part 11B development application, proposed mixed-use development at lot 29, Martinique Music Nation. We have a joint deputation from Stephen Brown, Peter Rolls, Mark Hendon, Dr. Alan Brown, Honourable Cheryl Edwards and Colin Edwards. If you can come forwards, please.
Thank you all and welcome today. I just wanted to know that we have combined your deputation today. So as a result, we have provided 10 minutes in total, and I assume that you have coordinated amongst yourselves to work through that in terms of your presentation and timing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When the estate was planned in 1997, the use of this site was assumed equivalent to 10 dwellings. Martinique and Coss were built with 6 metre wide pavements. They are residential access streets, the lowest in both Main Roads' hierarchy of roads and livable neighbourhoods. Main Roads defines their function to provide access to properties with amenities, safety and aesthetic aspects having priority over vehicle movement function. Livable neighbourhoods adds low traffic volume, pedestrian and bike priority over vehicles to that purpose. All vehicle traffic to and from the development is via Martinique or Coss. Primary pedestrian interfaces from Martinique. These access streets are the development's main streets. Hepburn and Whitfords avenues are irrelevant. First slide, please. The grocer will be regularly restocked by these 12.5 metre heavy rigid trucks. Main Roads only permits heavy vehicles on residential access streets to service properties. The next 4 images are swept path analyses demonstrating the chaos that these trucks entering or exiting the building via 6 metre wide streets. Next slide, please. Truck entering from Martinique, from Coss. Both sides of Martinique, they need both sides of Martinique to manoeuvre into and out of the building. They will also need both sides of the street and the internal driveway to be clear of other vehicles to complete a manoeuvre. Next slide, please. This should be the truck exiting onto Martinique. The next 4 images are swept path analyses demonstrating, sorry. Okay, where are we? That's there's a truck exiting west on Martinique. Next slide, please. There's a truck entering from Martinique east. Next slide, please. There we go. The commercial space is classified as a local centre. The Commission's policies on activity centres, densities and movement networks are illustrated in this one image. Livable Neighbourhood states that neighbourhood and local activity centres are located on or at the intersection of local streets, i.e. neighbourhood connectors or higher. Note that not one local centre is located on an access street. Neighbourhood connectors have a minimum pavement width of 7 metres and range up to 10. They are suitable for R40 to R80 density. This development is R119. Typical main streets for densities over R180 over R80 are integrators. Access streets like Kos and Martinique were designed to accommodate R40. Nowhere in any government policy does it state that 6 metre wide residential access streets are appropriate for centre main streets, mixed-use developments or R119 density. Martinique and Kos are unfit for this purpose. This proposal is not orderly and proper planning. It is unworkable and dangerous. It would not preserve the amenity of the locality. It would destroy it.
Good morning. I live on the corner of Martinique Mews and Kos Link, which is directly east of the new building. Myself and other residents will be affected from overshadowing. For instance, a 35-metre building will cast a shadow of 50 to 60 metres at 4 p.m. At 5 p.m. in the summer, it'll cast 100 metres. In the winter, it virtually doubles. At 4 p.m, it's 100 metres. At 5 p.m, it's 200 metres. But at 6 p.m, nearly doubles again. So myself and other residents will be completely overshadowed. I have a solar panels, a swimming pool. The afternoon, they'll be in darkness. So proposed 11-storey building will be significantly reduced sunlight to my home, including my solar panel swimming pool. The reason for the overshadowing is simple. The building is too tall, too bulky for its location. It does not align with the Hillary structure plan, which clearly sets expectations for a low-rise human-scale development. It also conflicts with the principles of livable neighbourhoods, which aim to create places that are comfortable, well-designed, and have good access to sunlight. For these reasons, I respectfully ask that the application not be supported.
Good morning. I live in the surrounding streets of this development. My focus is on the parking issues, particularly the residential, visitor and commercial parking is shared, and the reciprocal arrangement will be terribly confusing. People going in there won't know whether they're a visitor or a commercial customer. Where do they park? Other issues include, where do the employees of these commercial enterprises park? There could be at least 20 people per day turning up for work, park in the streets around, presumably. Short-term commercial customers are most likely to seek parking in the surrounding streets, given the experience of the commercial development of the corner of Angove and Whitfords. And basically all the customers there park in the streets, even though there's some allocated parking underground. Overflow and quick and easy parking will tend to be in the street. People want to find a quick parking rather than go around and round in a basement car park. The proposal stated ample surrounding street parking consistent with RDC2 guidance and partly relies on street parking. Existing surrounding streets such as Martinique, Oahu, Seychelles and Tahiti is 80% occupied presently with residents on most days. Why? Because the houses in this area don't have a driveway. They have rear access lanes with 2 garages at the back. So family, beyond the 2 cars, visitors, friends have to park in the street. And additional cars that are coming through commercial will tend to park in these areas. So that's my brief statement on parking. Thank you.
Madam Chair and members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. As a nearby resident and landowner, my husband and I strongly object to the proposed development at 35 Martinique Mews based on its clear inconsistency with the Hillary structure plan and departure from orderly and proper planning principles. We also acknowledge the significant concern reflected in over 500 public submissions opposing this proposal. The site is governed by the Hillary Structure Plan, which sets expectations for low-rise residential development, limited retail activity, and a cohesive neighbourhood character. It assigns a density of R50 with a maximum discretionary height of 3 stories and promotes development that is human-scaled and pedestrian-friendly. The proposal for 8 and 11-storey buildings substantially departs from this framework. The structure plan does not support tower forms, and the R50 zoning aligns with low-rise development of up to 3 stories. The proposal scale and intensity are therefore incompatible with the intended planning controls. In terms of density, R50 is categorised as low-rise under the residential design codes. Even a higher density, such as R80, would only support medium-rise development at a neighbourhood centre level. The proposed plot ratio further reflects overdevelopment, exceeding by more than 2.5 times what would be expected under the current framework. The scale of discretion required to approve is well beyond what is reasonable or contemplated. The State Design and Review Panel, in its Planning Framework and Policy Assessment Overview in the April report, identifies 9 local and state instruments in which the proposal does not comply and will need variation or some discretion. In conclusion, the proposal is inconsistent with the structure plan and other relevant local and state planning instruments, exceeds acceptable height and density limits, and undermines the established character of Harbour Rise. The scale of discretion required to approve does not represent orderly and proper planning, and the proposal must be refused. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your joint deputation. That managed extremely well. If I might just go back to Speaker 2, Peter Rouse, you mentioned your location. Can I just, you don't need to reveal your address, but if you could just restate the way that you described it in your deputation as to where you're located.
I live on the corner of Bartnick and Coslink, directly east. So I'm right on the corner. So, yeah.
Thank you very much for that. Members, are there any questions of the joint deputies today? No questions. Look, in terms of the issues that you raised, we will address these and discuss them when we come to the item. We'll look at the issue of the overshadowing to your site, and we will the parking, the planning framework, the issues that you've turning swept paths and traffic and access. So we will address these issues that you've raised in your deputation when we.
Thank you.
For our next deputation, also regarding item 3.3, we have Graham Shenton. If you can come forwards, please.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've lived in Seacrest, or what was called Seacrest, for 36 years. But our land title has a caveat that sits as proof that the original developers themselves did not imagine this locality as anything but single suburban. Planning restrictions on each and every one of us have limited us and our properties to less than 3 stories. It's arguable that this development is in some way linked to the marina. In their Delos Way verbal submission, the same developers confusingly called their plans a part of the marina, a transition from the marina, and an asset to the suburb. But as echoed in other submissions, how can it be a transition if the proposal is for higher buildings than those envisaged in the Boat Harbour Master Plan itself? Delos Way was approved at 7 levels, and this time the developers want more. I'm not against this style of development, but this panel is being asked on this occasion to rubber stamp overreach. Once again in this application, there is gateway talk. Perhaps gateway is some sort of planning buzzword, But if you want to build a big building, which in this case blocks residents' amenities of the marina, call it a gateway. But the reality is that the marina and this development are widely separated. 79% of residents in the immediate area don't want this development. The Martinique Mews area is a quiet, well-planned locality with families living in quality houses. Service access from the Martinique and Coast Link will do nothing for the amenity of the area, as you've heard. And where will the building workers park during the construction? Nobody has answered this. Most Hillary's and Hepburn Heights residents already live in a noisy environment. We have activity in the marina, often fueled by alcohol, hoon driving, vehicles racing through our suburb not properly policed, and when policing does happen, sirens. We do not need another alcohol outlet in this development. There are already several in the area, and in 2026, you can order deliveries on the phone. The original planning for the area recognised the need for a harborised local centre on the site, which after 30 years should already have happened. The vision sold to the original residents is being swept aside here. The developer seeks a bigger bite of the cherry. Yes, there are quality units in this development, but I would point out that the claimed 30% sold in Delos Way so far, the majority are single bedroom units, adding some weight to the point that in fact what they're building here are investor units and Airbnbs. And what I do find disingenuous is the suggestion that the developers have altered these plans to improve its design. What they're in fact doing in some cases is to make the views from the north side of their Delos Way development more saleable. And finally, we led this meeting with a recognition of traditional link to country. Therefore, please tell me, in honouring this spirit, where in this development have the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation been consulted?
Thank you very much for your deputation today. Members, any questions? Graham. No questions. Thank you very much, Graham.
Yeah. Our next deputation also regarding item 3.3. Mayor Daniel Kingston and Catherine Temple, you come forward. When you are.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner and members of the committee for the opportunity to present today. The proposal that's before you does not align with the expected built form, bulk, scale, pedestrian interface and urban design outcomes of this locality. The site is subject to the Hillary's structure plan, a current and valid instrument, considered by the Commission to be suitable for the next 3 years. The proposed residential density significantly exceeds the R50 density for the site, and proposed parking shortfall would result in adverse impacts on the surrounding area. Responding to the advice from the Commission that the structure plan provisions relating to the density coding of R50 are not considered contemporary, the City has reviewed both the structure plan itself and the advice from the Commission, and has proposed to recode these sites from R50 to R80 to allow development of these sites to occur at an appropriate scale. In the context of this review, the City believes that the proposal's residential density still significantly exceeds an appropriate scale of development for this location. The City supports development consistent with its activity centre hierarchy to reach the state's infill targets, and we strongly promote and support development in our strategic centre in the Joondalup CBD, and we're also commencing the preparation of structure planning in the secondary centre in Warwick. However, the proposed building height, plot ratio at this site are inconsistent with a local centre of this nature, and it undermines the established activity centre hierarchy. This proposal is not what the Hillary's community envisaged at this location, and will have impacts on the people who live immediately nearby, as well as on the character and amenity of the local area. Our community needs certainty And orderly planning is about providing certainty through having planning instruments that are predictable, that you can see what is likely to be built near them, but also for industry and also for local government and for regulators. The scale of discretion that's being sought here is very broad to approve or to consider approving a development of this sort. As such, for the reasons stated earlier, this proposal would not represent orderly and proper planning of the locality. I'll now hand to Catherine Temple, who's our manager for planning at the city.
Thank you. And just to add on to some of the points that were made by Mayor Kingston and some of the residents as well this morning, the site is identified as a mixed-use landmark location within the Hillary Structure Plan, and it does have an R50 density, as has been stated. In July 2025, the Commission approved a 3-year extension to the Hillary Structure Plan, and at that time they encouraged the city to review the density of the R50 coded sites to provide for higher density and diverse housing product given their locational context. And so council has done that. In March 2026, they considered a report on normalisation of the structure plan and resolved to prepare a scheme amendment that in part would recode this site to R80, and the city is currently awaiting ministerial consent to advertise that amendment. The site is a local centre under our local commercial strategy, and that hierarchy was reaffirmed in a needs assessment that was undertaken in 2024 as part of our local planning strategy review. State Planning Policy 4.2 outlines preferred dwelling typologies for local centres to be low-rise apartments, multiple dwellings, townhouses, group dwellings and terrace housing. The proposed development includes 2 towers of apartments, one 8 stories and one 11 stories, development that cannot be considered low-rise and clearly does not align with the centre hierarchy. The scale of development is inconsistent with the current density and council's proposed density of R80, and it's more characteristic of higher order activity centres with an RAC1 or RAC0 density. The scale will have a significant impact to the nearby residents, and we consider that it should be reduced to be more sympathetic to its setting and local centre designation. And just to touch on the shortfall of commercial and visitor parking, this is of concern as the surrounding area is characterised by laneway lots with existing on-street parking that's intended for residential visitors and not overflow for commercial parking. Any parking shortfall has the potential to negatively impact on residential amenity and safety as a result of increased demand for on-street parking. And the city requests that the committee considers further revisions to the parking ratios on site within the development to address the concern. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Catherine and Mayor Kingston, thank you very much for your deputation today. I do appreciate, Catherine, that you've acknowledged that when the structure plan was extended, that there was that clear advice that was provided back from the Commission, that we did seek for you to review the density coding of the 2 sites for both Delos Way and for the proposed site that we're dealing with today. And I acknowledge that that is currently under review, obviously not seriously entertained at this stage given that it hasn't been advertised, but thank you for mentioning that. Members, do you have any questions for the City of Joondalup? No, okay, thank you very much.
Next deputation, also regarding item 3.3, will be presented by Tim Dawkins, Cameron Liebgott, Stuart Sinclair, Al McNess, and Tim Bergrim. Please come forwards. You are.
Thank you, Chair and panel members. I've got Stuart from Locust Property and Tim from the Architect joining me today, and we'll briefly talk about the proposal and happy to answer any questions related to the site. As you know, we've developed this site over a long time, the plan for this site, and it's been developed as a twin with its site that was approved by the SVC about a year ago on the south side of the road on Delos Way. From the very beginning, these sites were conceived together and designed as a twin set because of the landmark location of this one and the important interrelationship between the 2 sites. They pass through the DLP, the State Design Review panel process together, and it's about trying to create that localised amenity and housing diversity for the area. A builder has been appointed for the Delos site that was approved. Bulk earthworks, forward works have started to occur already, and the timing is expected to start construction in earnest within 2 months. This project delivers a housing solution for the residents that isn't available in the locality. This is evidenced by sales of the southern site, where 60% of the buyers are within Sorrento, Hillary's, or the adjoining suburbs. There's clearly limited housing choice and availability of housing of this typology and to achieve amenity within a walkable way. But some nervousness from the presenters this morning. This project is actually conceived about trying to enrich the local and community and provide a community experience. It facilitates aging in place and creating opportunities for young people who've grown up in the area to remain via smaller apartments and at a price point that just isn't available in the area with the traditional freestanding homes. Fundamentally, it delivers housing diversity in an area dominated by large detached dwellings. It supports the housing continuum by freeing up big houses for people who may downsize or move out and allow a new generation of families to grow in the area and be part of this community that's going to be anchored by this community hub. This is a modern interpretation of a long-standing plan. The document is 30 years old, but it has always envisaged an outcome of this nature, a mixed-use development with a retail convenience and ability for the community to gather and have those important interactions that the SPP 4.2 has as its heart in terms of its hierarchy of local development. The open plaza will be delivered with an easement to the benefit of the public at large, so the community can gather there and treat it as their backyard. It will allow them to come and interact and have and meet with their neighbours and provide those activities that are important to rich local communities. Through all the consultation we took on board early for both sites, that was a part of the process people really wanted to see, and this local amenity is something that's been lacking in the area for a long time, as we heard earlier. There is no local supermarket or any type of retail to do your day-to-day needs within 2 kilometres of the site, and this site will offer the convenience retail for all the localities for a grocery-style development. The comprehensive DRP process has resulted in significant design amendments through the process, and we elected to continue to meet the DRP, to continue to refine it, to make sure we understood the feedback and had taken that on to get the development right and resolve the spatial resin of the site. The rules that apply for the site from a 30-year-old document weren't fit for purpose, so we wanted to make sure what is the right outcome for this site, designed for its context and its current meaning under the context of the planning parameter that exists at the state level and the housing process that exists. When we applied for the SPC about this time last year, when the Delos application came up, we described the process of the planning framework and how that it was a 30-year-old document and wasn't fit for purpose in the current context. It doesn't anticipate the ability to achieve a contemporary apartment-based housing models in this locality. It was a beach coastal suburb, and it wasn't anticipated to be able to support apartments at the time. The current scale intensity and the destination appeal of Hillary's Brookhaven, we spoke about how Hillary's is the second highest destination outside the Perth CBD after Fremantle. This is where people go, where they take their neighbours and their friends and their visitors, and this is an appropriate response to define Perth and how people experience it. And we simply didn't have the housing supply problem or the diversity objectives that existed at the time. This is an ambitious project. Mixed-use developments of this nature are constantly expected by planners all the time, but there's very few examples of this being achieved in many locations. Building mixed use is really challenging. It doesn't happen very often, and this is an opportunity to do it in a way which is really successful. The development has been able to design and control and mitigate the potential conflicts in terms of things like overshadowing, overlooking, and making sure the impacts of the development are maintained to itself, and also ensuring that it has a cohesive podium definition and a great appeal at street level to pedestrians. Traffic and logistics have been carefully resolved. The traffic report confirms that the site and adjacent intersections will continue to operate well within capacity. All intersections have been tested and demonstrate to support the requirements of the development. It is noted in the agenda that the development is assessed to satisfy the R code requirements for parking and supplies sufficient parking for its needs. I live in an old suburb. I have a 24-hour IGA at the end of the street. I'm feel privileged to have that outcome, and trucks come up my narrow little street and they can achieve delivery. As the right vehicles up to 19 metres are designed to navigate roads in Perth, and this won't be required to deliver those sorts of vehicles. But it can, as the right vehicles are going to main roads if they want to. Conclusion. This has been a collaborative process with the SDAU, the City of Joondalup, and all agencies worked well. It's a pragmatic result that achieves a resolution of the technical issues, and all the questions have been asked us through the process, and is a design-based response to achieving a good outcome. We're agreeing with the agenda. We don't have any issues in terms of way it's communicated, and we're happy with all the conditions that have been recommended. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Tim. Obviously, there's been a range of issues that have been raised through the deputations today from some of the adjoining residents and also from the City of Joondalup. I might just start with the overshadowing issue, just in terms of the deputation that we did hear from, apologies, from Mr. Rowles and his concern as a resident living on the corner of Martinique Mews and Cos Link. The overshadowing diagrams provided with the plans don't show that there's an impact on that site, and I just wanted to put that to you to hear your perspective on it.
The shadowing isn't just a measure of tall buildings and shadows, because it's about context and distance and separation. So obviously, the further away a building, the less the shadowing impact. So you could have a 3-story building that overshadows a development more than a building that's tall, that's set back further. And that's how we've designed this site. So we started with how do we mass up the site to make sure that the shadowing is appropriate. So we knew that we had neighbours to the south, because obviously shadows generally fall that way, and neighbours to the east. And so that's why the building has been tiered in the way it has, to make sure that the shadows are controlled. So we don't see any overshadowing on that property within the times of day that the R codes assess. The only shadowing that occurs of any nature is to the south side. That's well within the R code's limits, and we've actually modelled it up to show that it actually at the winter solstice doesn't enter the property, it doesn't enter the building. It's only in the front setback area, which is facing the road reserve of Hepburn Avenue. That was our starting point for design, to make sure that the shadowing is appropriate response.
Thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to address? So we heard in relation to talk of it being a transition in relation to the marina, and that the heights proposed here are higher than what is proposed at the marina. You've addressed briefly that issue of services and trucks, but there was some detailed sweat paths presented. I wouldn't mind asking you about the construction management plan and parking for the construction workforce. I think that's a one that's come up. The small liquor store has been raised, and just also how the reciprocal parking is envisaged to work between the commercial and visitor parking. Residential and commercial visitor parking, particularly the issue was raised about visitors to the existing residential area parking on the streets, given that they don't have driveways provided. So happy to remind you of any of those, but if you could perhaps start with answering some of those questions.
I'll start with the liquor store.
If there's anything, I'll remind you.
Thank you. Start with the liquor store. That in the explanatory guidelines to SPP 4.2, it talks about the types and characteristics of neighbourhood of local centres. And a liquor store is actually identified as something that's as an expected and required, well, not required, but an expected characteristic of a local centre. The more and more, as the Commission's aware, SPP 4.2, going back from 2009, when it was first resolved to reduce the caps, has gone back to more a character and function of the centre. So the size of the centre isn't so important as it was when this 30 years ago, when this was designed with strict caps in place. It's about the character and function of the Royals Place. So we haven't changed the characteristics of what this centre will be. It's still functioning as a local centre and providing those needs. The nature of retailing simply just changed, and it's still doing those things. And if it was designed now, the structure plan would allocate a reasonable size like this for local functions. So that's in terms of the local centre, but also specifically the liquor. The visitor parking, it's obviously the City of Joondalup have suggested this could be R80. We haven't been consulted and no one showed us any of those plans, but it was really clear that when they were given an initial 3 years, it wasn't to say these rules that currently apply are the appropriate rules. You're just saying you didn't do it. We've known this is coming for 10 years. You've all had 10 years to just have structure plans lapse. You haven't written one. Here's 3 more years to go ahead and think about it and write one. And the R80 zone is not appropriate in our zone, but in our consideration. But if it were applied at R80, the visitor parking requirements actually goes into volume 1 of the R codes, not our volume 2, which R50 is, and it reduces the visitor parking requirements. So we further actually would require less visitor parking on the site in an R80 context. So we're actually providing the visitor parking as required under volume 2. We achieve the maximum amount of residential parking for the development. Every development, every apartment, every 2-bedroom apartment will get 2 bays, which is what we've heard is the expectations in the locality, and that's been said today. And so everyone's getting 2 bays, and most of those second bays are actually fundamentally a visitor parking bay for people who have a guest, so the guests can arrive in actually parking those. So they operate to a degree as visitor parking themselves. But the visitor parking is also associated with the way that the asymmetric demands of a centre operate. So when the local centre is busy, it's probably during the days when people are at work or out and about, or they can use those parking bays. And so there's going to be a balance between the two peaks to actually provide car parking. It's a modern interpretation. The Hillary's Boat Harbour is a sea of car parks, but it's improving itself. And so the actual location of the entry to the Hillary's Boat Harbour has been relocated from a long slip road, as was kind of the design in the 90s by Perth Lands, to the roundabout there. That will now be the main entry into Hillary's Boat Harbour, and that's what people are going to come and go. And it's turning into a more urban style development and not becoming a place where people just are dominated by cars. The existing area has massive peaks. It is the second most visited place in the metro area after the Perth CBD. That's an existing condition. We can't resolve that, but all we can do is provide the car parking we require for our development, for our residents as well as their visitors, and the parking is provided.
You get that, but just in terms of it talks in the conditions about a detailed parking plan is to be provided. So I'm assuming that the reciprocal parking arrangements will be articulated.
Correct. And so that will be in the strata rules, as will banning Airbnbs. This won't be allowed. We won't have Airbnbs because that's not what residents feel safe, and it's not something that we want to be able to have in the development. So that won't be occurring. We can talk to the investor profile. It's not the buyers so far have been predominantly owner occupiers. We can talk to that. But the construction management, whether it's just the proposed 11 stories and 8 stories, or whether it's a single story bigger development, that's always going to be a requirement of the site. It's not going to change the amount of site that's required or the amount of workers in terms of constructing that site. And once
then just go to the construction workforce in terms of the parking.
So I can't talk definitively about it because we have to appoint a builder, and they'll have their own ways. But what will typically happen is they'll be allowed to park in a way on the site. And then once the basement's developed, the workforce can actually park in the building and utilize the parking of the site. So for a period of time, there will be a development, but that's a normal part of development. Whether it's a fully compliant development or whether it's this proposal, there will be a need to actually mobilize the site. But once the podium's up, that can be used as parking, as is the case for all these sorts of developments.
Thank you. Members, I tried to cover off many of the issues raised in invitations. If I've missed any, if there are other questions, please do go ahead. Thank you, Commissioner Lakey.
I've got 2 design questions, maybe for Tim as the architect. One is, you go through an extensive design review with the SDIP and the government architect. And I understand you went through 4 of those with a different style of building, and at the end you brought in you split the building into 2. I just wonder if you could just take us through the rationale of that process and why you've ended up to where you are.
Yeah, I think a lot of it stemmed from the ground floor and the uses and getting that public amenity right. There were lots of options done in regards to the activation of the public plaza, and therefore the interaction of where the public or the private lobbies would be, the residential lobbies. So we certainly played with those forms significantly. We looked at the gateway approach of Delos Way, which is approved, versus this building on Martinique, and how they related to each other. We certainly went through sort of 3 or 4 iterations, and I would say the first 2 were done quite quickly in regards to the approval for Delos, in regards to this is how we could approach the building. It was very clear, I think, after the sort of the second or third one that maths wasn't appropriate, and by breaking down the form, gave a level of comfort for everyone in regards to the scale. The idea that we could transition in scale from the east across to the west, likewise from Oahu Park to the south as well. We had a better transition of scale, which was a lot more neighbourly. The breakdown of the buildings, which then created 17.5 metre separation between the 2, allows that approach from the West Coast Highway going north. You have that break in the 2 buildings, so you have that perception of sky and break and a breakdown of building form. So I think it was a much better outcome through the process. Yes, it was long and tedious. I think it took us almost 1.5 years to go through that process, but we believe it's a much better outcome due to that process.
I may follow up. You mentioned the plaza and the public access to that. Are you confident the legibility of that access is clearly enunciated, so the public can see it and not read it as a private space?
Yes, I think the separation of the uses is significant. Certainly during the process, it took a lot of chat about the activation of Hepburn Ave and having residences both providing passive surveillance on Hepburn Ave and Whitfords Ave, and likewise to the north as well. So the idea of pushing the ground floor, creating a protected northern plaza, really invites the residents of Hillary's and Oahu Park and that relationship across that street, and it's got some beautiful plane trees and on-street parking there. So that relationship and that openness will be really evident as you come through Martinique. So I don't think there's any issue with the ownership of that. I think through the discussions as well, there was the cross-site link, so the connection from Sorrento residents to be able to walk across a very busy road being Hepburn Ave, but have a straight connection through to that plaza and obviously the access to the shopping that's available through there, and likewise from the marina. So we've positioned a cross-link that basically aligns with those two. Visibility as well from the roundabout as well. So I think it becomes quite open and transparent at points through there, obviously acknowledging it's a two-lane roundabout, so it is quite busy as well. So separation from that is important, but I think the plaza itself is pushed back. It's got great landscaping. It's got some changes in height and some ramps and things. So it'd be an interesting place for people to dwell and have a coffee and the like through there.
If I could also add, we've done it in previous projects. We've actually used the statutory signage or the signage of the local government to put in the private domain. So it actually feels like a public space. So people so it blurs the lines. People feel like they're invited in there. They're obviously allowed to via the easement that will apply, but actually using the City of Joondalup signage, we'd be happy to accommodate that to make it people feel more accommodating and welcome in there through the.
One follow-up, Chair. I'd like to talk about the podium, and one of the comments through the last DIP was generally supportive of design, good design, but they do question the way the relationship at ground level of one of the buildings, I think, and whether the podium should extend further or wrap around the most western building, I believe. At the moment, the podium stops; it doesn't wrap around the whole. I'd just like to get your thoughts on why you've done that. What's the rationale? And and comment on the feedback from the architect on it.
I think it's a long history with that process. I think that probably started after, let's say it was DRP3, where we pushed the car parking down to very low levels in regards to the basement, which allowed us to get ground floor tenancies to be level to the roundabout level, where in previous iterations it was 1.6 lifted off the ground, and there were certainly issues with the interface there. So by us being able to push that form down and get some more car parking in the basement area, that allowed us to get apartments on level 1, which was sort of a mezzanine level on that western building. So we thought it was much more appropriate in regards to getting activation residents on that level 1, as opposed to a car parking built form at that point. What we have done is mimic the materiality and the language of Delos in regards to that form. So we have solidified those balconies on that level 1 and level 2. So they do have an element of protection from the car parking and the noise at that point, as opposed to it being glass in the first iteration. So we have responded to that. And I think when you see the two buildings, primarily from exiting the marina at the roundabout, you'll see those two buildings, and there'll be a relationship and cohesion between the two in regards to that podium form.
So you don't think the extension of the podium is warranted?
I think they're completely different uses. I think this is a ground floor public domain that needs to be open and transparent, and there's certainly commentary about the grocer being open. There was comments about us bringing the residential lobby to the front so we can see windows and the like. So having a heavy built form face like Delos does, I don't think it's appropriate, but I think it has enough cohesion between the two regarding materials and some form lineages that I think that they do speak to each other, but they are functionally doing different things.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Probably just a very brief one on the public art strategy that is conditioned here. Look, whilst it's we don't have a public art contribution at the City of Joondalup, I hope that you will see this as a benefit to the development if it is approved, given that you do have the plaza and that you are in a landmark location. Have you accepted that condition?
Yeah. We public art is something that's really important, and it can actually provide placemaking unification. So all of that space, there's a lot of public domain to deploy it in. Getting an arts involved and give it some interest and some sense of place and uniformity is something we'll definitely be doing.
Okay, thank you. Members, are there any further questions? Thank you very much for your deputation.
Deputations concern item 3.4. I'm just going to ask Commissioner Heron to rejoin, and Commissioner Lake, if you could. Okay, so our next deputation is regarding item 3.4, Part 11B development application, proposed residential apartments at lots 14 to 19, Canning Highway, East Fremantle determination. I've been told by the team we've had trouble getting in contact with Jacqueline Kay. Are you here in person, Jacqueline? We're not. We have tried to call several times, haven't been able to make contact.
Okay, we'll have to move on then.
Going to move on. Also regarding item 3.4, we have in person Stuart Duplock, Jacob Flores, Peter Hobbs, Isabel Hammett, Will, and sorry if I mispronounced this, and McElwee. We're ready to proceed when you are.
Yeah, hi everyone. Stuart Duplock, General Manager of Foundation Housing. I'll just give you a summary of our points. Worst housing crisis since the 60s. I don't think I need to explain that to anyone in the room. Complete lack of affordable supply in Fremantle. It's a 34 social housing unit proposal. It's boutique in scale and it's highly manageable for our build to rent business. We've got other 100% social housing complex in Perth, East Perth, Leederville, and another one in East Perth ranging from 60, 70, 100, 210 social housing units. So 100% social housing works well. In terms of parking ratios, those buildings I just mentioned work at 1 bay per 5 dwellings or less. Some even have nil. 1 in 4 is our typical development model that we work on. The proposal here is 1 in 2, so 1 car bay for every 2 units. It's twice what we think we'll need. It will cater for our residents and our visitors and our staff. Community engagement since we were appointed in July has been extensive. We've had 2 community drop-ins. We've had a focus group. We've had a website running, FAQs, we've had numerous calls and emails. We're completely open to any inquiry we get. Look, we're not DHW, we're Foundation Housing. We have a different management model. It's curated. It's far superior to how the government performs. It's a supportive landlord model for those most in need of housing, and we seek your support for this modest but much needed proposal.
Thank you very much for your deputation.
Sorry, Chair.
You're still continuing, all right? Can't see the timer. Where are we at? You still have 3 minutes, so yes, you're welcome to use it.
Okay, can we just go to the next slide, please? Hi, I'm Peter Hunt, I'm the architect. Next slide. So it just shows you the location. It's in between the 2 bridges. It's within 5 minutes of a great deal of retail, park and amenities. It's an ideal place for this kind of project. Next slide, please. We've assessed the character on Cantonment Hill. The biggest thing about it is you'd say it's very diverse. It's got some Federation, Gold Rush housing. It's got modern deco stuff from the 80s. So there is no discernible style. We have taken inspiration though from the buildings around it. There's a predominance of vertical expressions in the windows and the fenestration. And we've also done some character and colour assessment where you can see we've just taken the kind of the landscape colours and the limestone underbase of Cantonment Hill, and then had some highlights which you can sort of see referenced through the colours of the harbour and the colours of the rainbow. Next, please. In terms of our approach to planning the site, we've simply wrapped the building around the frontages. It means that it's an architect's delight. A huge amount of north access, the northern access. We've got 100% northern aspect to and cross ventilation to all the apartments. It's very simple, over 3 stories. The armatures of entrances from East Street, Canning Highway and Clyde Street. And we've got sort of circulation from the rear. The big next, please. What the thing we're really happy is the landscape, the way that the landscape can just have 2 very distinct areas. The main road widening's been absorbed into our site, into our vert, so we've got very substantial planting to Canning Highway as a buffer, and then an interior courtyard where there's going to be more intimate sort of user-focused planting in courtyards. Next, please. We've managed to really focus as part of the design process, design review, to really get the entrances at a domestic scale. They're 3-story, they're kind of quite intimate and inviting. The control of the site is very important. It is going to be intercom controlled and needs to be secured access. So that's part of that's had to be woven into those entrances. Next slide, please. You can see the building in its context. It forms the gateway as you move towards Fremantle from East Fremantle. It's got a really substantial planted edge to it, but it sort of creates that point of entry into the city. Next, please. And a thing that we're particularly proud of is the public art on each corner. This is weaving sort of stories of the river, Durable Yarragon River, onto each corner. And it's going to be sort of embedded into brickwork. You'll also see the kind of the depth of the main roads and project planting. So we're very, very pleased to commend this project here.
Thanks, Peter. And I'll just briefly mention one of our condition requests. These are on page 113 of the agenda. We have 3 of them in total. I just want to speak about condition 22, which is an important one for us. That's a sustainability condition. I want to be clear that Foundation Housing and the project team are committed to achieving a high standard of environmental performance through this project. And the proposal is already demonstrating that. We have 100% of the units already stated for wind online, 100% cross ventilation. The issue with condition 22 in its current form is it seeks to convert an aspirational target into a statutory requirement. That is despite that target not being required by the planning framework. So in particular, I'm talking about the part of the condition that requires 8-star average NatHERS rating. That is not part of the planning framework. The R-codes volume 2 do speak to NatHERS. They do ask for an increase in the minimum from 6 to 6.5 stars. They do not speak to the averages. Even if the R-codes were interpreted in a way where the additional half-star requirement was applied to the average, that would take it from 7.5, not 8 stars. And I'll just be really clear, the 8 stars was presented as an aspirational target. It was clearly stated that way in the sustainability report. So we're asking for that condition to be amended accordingly. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Trent. We've got the others here in your written part for 17A and 18B. We will look to those when we come to deal with your item. Look, I just wanted to say in relation to the previous deputy that we haven't been able to raise, Jacqueline Kay. Much of what was raised in that deputation is sitting outside of the planning framework, and these around social housing are not valid planning considerations for us. And I think that I should have reviewed that a bit further, because there are some headlines included which are quite offensive. So I do apologise that they made that into the agenda. That should not have happened. But there is one issue that's been raised that is really just about the access and the choice of access, and that Deputy did put the case that the access from Glyde Street should have been contemplated. Would you like to comment on that, given that that is a valid planning consideration?
I didn't note that particular comment in the deputation. Could I just clarify, Chair, was that in relation to vehicle access?
Vehicle access and exit points on Glyde Street to mitigate safety risks at the Canning Highway intersection off East Street.
Yeah, the development does not contain any
vehicle access off Glyde Street.
I think they're seeking.
They're saying.
They're seeking to understand why that hasn't been provided.
Oh, yes, sorry. Apologise. No, I think, I mean, the parking supply is able to be contained in the area of the site where it's proposed at the moment. It had actually been considered on Glyde Street, but it was resulting in an oversupply of car parking and hard stand. We've been able to design that area effectively as landscaping, and it forms a really good landscape buffer to those adjoining properties on Glyde Street.
Thank you. Members, do you have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. I just wanted to talk about the road widening, the proposed road widening. Should that occur, I'm just interested to hear from a design perspective the impact that that may have on the development and on residents, actually, because it would actually be quite close to the building. So from a noise and an impact, you know, amenity.
So we've set the setback to Canning Highway another 3.5 or 4 meters behind where you would normally be for the road widening. So what it's meant is we've got about an 8 or 9 meter verge there. So if we did lose some of the road widening, we'd still have a 4 meter setback. And so I think that's within the planning rules. But further to that, since there's been the work on the bridge, our understanding is that all of the major road widening will be absorbed in this next bit of bridge building. So very unlikely to happen.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Heron.
Yeah, thank you for your deputation. Just to, in terms of some of the proposed condition modifications and in terms of the referral to main roads, I understand why you may not wish that to happen. However, given the issue that was just being raised, this uncertainty and wanting to get some feedback in relation to any proposed road widening or road modifications, can you understand that it might be necessary to enable a referral to that process?
Commissioner, the condition that we had specifically raised there was the stormwater management plan. The proposal at this stage is to retain stormwater on site. So we didn't see the need for that particular plan to be referred to main roads. For other aspects of the process, we fully respect the proposal has been referred to main roads and provided input. They're also a current landowner for a couple of the lots, so there's been ongoing consultation with main roads. Yeah, it was just in relation to the stormwater management plan.
Thank you very much for that clarification. The other one, in terms of the one that you had raised around the star rating, so I understand the concern in relation to that, and obviously you're involved in the R-code review, which, you know, very clear in terms of how we manage that. You did make mention, however, that the sustainability report had made reference to the 8 stars. I just wanted to clarify. So that was referenced as an aspiration. And of course, there's also the as-built versus managed and maintained, but you're comfortable that a 6.5 rating as an application would not present an issue in your proposal?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Thank you. Members, any further questions for the deputies? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That concludes our verbal deputations for today. We'll just invite Commissioner Leahy back in. We have also received written deputations which are included in the agenda. We have received one in relation to the Hazelmere, the structure plan in Hazelmere. We have received 2 in relation to the Part 11B development application in Martinique News Hillaries. We have received 3 in relation to the Part 11B development application for Canning Highway in East Fremantle. They have been mentioned provided in the agenda. Members, at this point, given that deputations have been going for some time, does it need a 5-minute break? Okay, we'll just take a 5-minute break before we move to consideration of the non-complexible items. We'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you, everyone. Welcome back to the meeting. We'll now move through the non-confidential items for decision today, starting with item 3.1, standard structure plan for the Hazelmere Special Use Area 16. And we are joined by Andrew Cook and Mario. This item. Thank you, Andrew and Mario. You've heard the deputations today. There was quite a lot of discussion about the transition, particularly from the deputies from Trillion Trees and the primary school. Would you like to address that issue or any others before we go to questions?
Yes, Chair, thank you. We acknowledge the deputations. The area has been subject to previous structure planning, and the approved Hazelmere Enterprise Area Structure Plan establishes the strategic framework. The broader area is an area that is evolving to allow more industrial development to occur. Whilst this site represents what looks to be a rural land on the ground, it is zoned and planned for development. The approved water structure plan encourages industrial growth, and in terms of this LSP area, the broader structure plan identifies it as an area for development of transitionary land uses between the industrial development, residential development to the west. Structure plan that is with you today is generally consistent with that higher order structure plan, with the exception of an area to the northwest, which was spoken about in the deputations, the landowner to the northwest, where the structure plan proposes commercial, whereas the broader approved structure plan identified a residential interface in that location. Our agenda report talks to the reasoning why we think that is acceptable given the site constraints. That is a subjective assessment at the end of the day, though. So we acknowledge all the deputations, and we also acknowledge the comments made during actual advertising of the structure plan. We're mindful of the residential landowners to the west, and we're mindful of sensitive landowners around this LSP area, including the school. We have sought to recommend modifications to the structure plan to address some of the concerns and the interface issues. We're happy to talk about those a bit more, but that's my overview.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Perhaps one thing that would warrant some further discussion or outline is that the highway service zone and how that is intended to be low intensity commercial uses, and why that particular land use exists in the scheme and its equivalency to commercial.
I might Mara's help a little bit. Thank you for the question, Chair. I'll make it start. But our understanding, and I think the proponent has spoken to it a bit, is that they have had to select a zone based on the current local planning scheme, and in doing so, and we consider that as merit as a type of commercial zone. The zoning under the scheme, the objectives is the commercial zone that provides for low intensity commercial uses. Some of the alternative commercial zonings are more your generic commercial, which is more focused on retail, which are other problems in that zone. It really, for us, is selecting the zone that best aligns with the current scheme, and we agree with this applicant and the city that that's the appropriate.
Not too much. I mean, yeah, I realise the heading does talk about highway, and that's probably the area of contention. It's not necessarily on a highway. And I think the objective does talk about sort of more major roads. This zone should be provided on. But we thought, on balance, given the limitations of the scheme in terms of whether it's a general commercial zone as opposed to a highway service zone, we support the applicant in this case, particularly considering that the city of Swan supported. So on balance, we thought it was an appropriate zone, but recognising it's not on a specific highway.
Thank you. Commissioner Brooks.
Just a question about the transmission line relocation. One of the deputations indicated that there'd been some ongoing negotiation about whether that was happening and how it was of it, and raised that it shouldn't be shown such a plan as a confirmed location. Can you provide a bit of context around that?
Through the chair, I'll start and get Mary. We acknowledge that there's a different process that's beyond the scope of structure plan process to suppose dictate where future power line may be relocated. We have got a modification, and Mary will just confirm so that this structure plan does not prejudice any different process that is about realigning infrastructure on the site. So I think that answers the question.
Yeah, that's great. So we do have a modification in the schedule of modifications. So it's modification 3.2. Does request the deletion of the plan relocation of the to AV transmission line, recognising that it is part of a separate process.
Further questions?
One of the deputations, I think it Hanson mentioned about the traffic volumes, and he queried the volume board and felt they'd been doubled up. I think memory he mentioned 3,000 vehicles per day, and I just wonder if you could just clarify that point, please.
So thank you for the question, member. That question came out of I think one of the questions from one of the members in relation to confirming the traffic volumes along the new north-south road, and there was a figure in the structure plan report, I think referred to around 6,000 odd vehicles per day. I can confirm it as per the TIA, so it's around 3,200 vehicles per day. So that's where that.
So that is correct.
So it's 3,200 vehicles per day on that north-south road, north of Bushmead.
Okay, anything further, members? Go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Yeah, thank you very much for the outline. And again, I think much of it has been covered off. In relation to the road alignment, because obviously there is a variation where the road was and it's now been curved around, and I'm assuming that that has been based upon the primary movement requirements that have been modelled. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, that's correct. Thanks for the question. That's my understanding is to, I think one of the intentions of this, the board structure plan is to separate the industrial and the residential traffic. And my understanding is the realignment of that north-south road sort of bends into Stirling Crescent is to separate those main uses, that those traffic movement. We do recognise that the applicant and the northern main are both liaison to the City of Swan in relation to the future construction of that road, and also the future upgrades to Stirling Crescent as well. So the exact alignment of those intersections, I think, it still need to be determined. We do have another further recognising the school concerns about access to their facility. There is a modification to indicate that the design of the intersection needs to be considered to consider the school in consultation with the city.
Thank you very much. One final one through the chair. My understanding is that the City of Swan scheme doesn't have a composite zone, because I know, say in City of Gosnells, for instance, we had that composite zone which allowed for industry and residential on the one side. But my understanding is the City of Swan scheme does not contain that. Is that correct? I couldn't find one anyway.
That is correct. That's correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Then if we can consider the recommendation before us, is there a mover and seconder? Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Heron, seconded by Commissioner Lakey.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I've given consideration to the issues that have been raised. I do, first of all, accept that this is quite an eclectic area, and again, it's about planning context. The notion, and again, although you can't be dismissive of existing uses, there is a context and a history associated with this, which has to also be understood and respected. I see the framework that has been developed has a level of clear logic attached to it, that there are proposed changes to seek to address the areas of concern. Ultimately, there will be shared responsibility of managing that interface, and I think that the planning framework does enable that detail to be dealt with. I do think that there's potentially a level of misunderstanding because of the term of the highway commercial, which once understood that it's because of the mix of land uses as opposed to the descriptor, that is why it has been selected. It makes good sense in terms of why that would be included in this particular circumstance. Between that and the other planning levels in terms of the detailed area plans, etc., which will come following this, I feel that all the issues are able to be suitably addressed. And contextually, I think we also need to understand and accept that there is an existing approval. So some of the references around the clearing, etc., that is a separate process. It has been undertaken and determined. So therefore, the non-residential element, I think, has been accepted. So on that basis, I was happy to support the recommendation as presented today.
Thank you. Commissioner Lake, you wish to add?
Thank you. Just to add a few things, I think this site, as with land, has been identified with its use for many years, and in many ways, it's a natural extension of the light industrial area. And industrial land is certainly undersupplied in the Perth metropolitan area. I do appreciate the concerns from some of the local community and residents, including from primary school, particularly around interfaces. But in my view, I think the parameters established by this structure plan are appropriate, that the interfaces can be addressed at the LDP, and therefore I'm happy to support this proposal.
Okay. Commissioners, anything further? Go ahead, Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. I'm very familiar with this area, and yes, it has been hotly debated topic for a while as to how it would be developed. I do think that with the modifications that have been proposed, we are finding probably a good balance in the outcome for the actual development. I think the position, I've listened closely to the position of the Trillion Trees deputation and the Waldorf School, and I believe being at light industrial, I think that there is concerns in the community that don't necessarily understand all of the differences between the industrial terminologies, but I believe that this creates a good balance and an appropriate outcome for a well-established area and context. I would like to make a modification to the wording of the recommendation, just to get the wording correct. And it would be in number 1 to delete 2 at the front of the thing, because that's a double up to the sentence, and on to just actually be worded require the proposed Hazelmere special use area 16 structure plan be modified in accordance with the attached schedule of modifications, not with regard to that.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Okay. Seconded by Member Harman. Makes perfect sense, but is there any discussion?
Administrative, yes.
Thank you. Any dissent to the amendment? Thank you. That is carried. Thank you for that correction. Anything further? Probably just add, I agree with what has been said before. It's unusual for us to have a request to go the other way from residential. We're not saying that too much at the moment, but also just noting the constraints that come with the high voltage power lines, and the I think the outcome takes consideration not only of the interface but also constraints of the site for residential. Wanted to mention that, but happy to support this item. Anything further?
Confirm, please. So correcting the grammatical error in point 1, and then
I'll give it to you afterwards if you like.
All right, is there any dissent to the modified recommendation? No, thank you, that is carried. Thank you. Our next item 3.2, Shire of Christmas Island Draft Local Planning Strategy Certification to Advertise, and we're joined by Peter Wood on this item. Welcome, Peter. Peter, thank you for this item. We have had a deputation today from Chris Sue from the Shire of Christmas Island. I think the Shire is happy with what is proposed here and the recommendation of modifications. Is there anything that you wish to add?
No, thank you, Chair. I was here for the presentation. I think Chris was very succinct in his points raised, and certainly appreciate the questioning from the Commissioner about the population drivers, which I think is a really important thrust of the Shire's local planning strategy.
Thank you. Members, any questions for Peter? Okay, then if I could have a mover and seconder for the item. Thank you, Commissioner Heron moving. Member Knight seconding. Any discussion?
Well, through the chair, I would just highlight, I think that it's a great foundation. I appreciate the work done. I think we do need to understand some of the nuance of Christmas Island, apart from its physical and environmental attributes, which are quite unique. Some of the plans, for instance, look out of context. You need to understand that it's more camp-on style in terms of like the population is quite a different profile than what you'd find in many other areas. I think that the proposed strategy does strike that balance in terms of the core planning principles that need to be applied, whilst also allowing some local context to be a key driver. But of course, I am looking forward to the site visit. Actually, I think it's the
Okay, thank you. Member Knight, any comment?
Thank you. I don't think there's much more I can add to that, although I would also look forward to the site visit. No, this is an exciting step.
No site visit is planned.
Absolutely not. No, this is an exciting step forward, and it was very pleasing to hear from gratitude and support that they received from the department.
Okay. Anything further, members? Yes. And Commissioner Adair.
Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge the enormous amount of work that's gone into this. This is a huge piece, huge document, and a great deal of detail. So, well done to the department for working so closely with achieving this outcome.
Look, I also just want to say it's really great to see the aspirations of Christmas Island and to hear from Chris and their neighbourly approach towards Cocos Island, and I think that will be really interesting to see their strategy come in, particularly after their char mapping exercise. And note that they are looking to diversify the economy and to meet that aspirational target of 5,000. So yes, it's very nice to get your to sort of step into this space and understand the context. Thank you. Members, anything further? Any dissent? Thank you very much. That is carried. Thanks, Peter. We're now moving to item 3.3, part 11B, development application for the proposed mixed-use development at lot 29 Martinique Mews and Hillaries. And we'll be joined by Paola DePerna and Kimberly Smithall on this island. On this island. So I'm going to get off the islands on the business. Hello, thank you for joining us. We have had a range of deputations item today, so I'd like to give you the opportunity to speak to the key matters, but also to address any of the issues that you would like to rise from the deputations.
Chair. In response to some of the matters that were raised in the deputations, I do highlight that the planning framework assessment has been undertaken by the department and detailed in particularly in the discussion section and in attachment A7. We acknowledge that the Hillary structure plan has been extended, but as highlighted earlier, it has been extended for a period, noting that the provisions of the structure plan do need to be reviewed. And having said that, we have considered the objectives and aims and the urban location of the site in considering and assessing the proposal. We acknowledge that the amendment to increase the densities for the development site have been considered by council. However, in the context of a planning instrument, it's not considered seriously entertained. And so in the assessment of this proposal, no weight's been to the amendment that has been prepared and drafted at this point in time. There has been some discussions relative to the liquor store and the appropriateness of the liquor store use. I highlight that it is a fairly minor component of the overall development, occupying about 6.2% of the commercial floor space, and is not intended to act as an anchor tenant given that the size and scale of the tenancy itself. The proposed land use in this location is also supported by the department's consistency in local planning schemes project, which identifies local small liquor store as permitted use in a local centre zone and an A use in a mixed use zone. The overall scale and bulk and scale of the development in terms of as it's been presented has gone through an extensive design review process, and feedback has been considered relative to that, and it's been included in the report and detailed to the extent. There are some modifications which have been recommended in condition 3 that require some further refinement of some of those aspects, for which we consider capable of being resolved following determination, should the application be approved. In particular, the assessment did focus on overshadowing, given the extent of departure that is proposed. As it's been highlighted, the assessment has considered the overshadowing on the 21st of June, which typically occurs in a southerly orientation. Therefore, quite a detailed solar access assessment has been undertaken for the property south on the south side of Hepburn Avenue. An independent assessment separate to that of the applicants has been undertaken, and we're satisfied that the shadows as depicted on the development plans and submitted as part of the application are accurate and have informed the basis of our assessment. Traffic and access were raised through the application consultation comments as well as in deputations today, and they have been considered. Access has been reviewed by both the City, Main Roads WA and the department officers, and there are no outstanding concerns with regards to road access or vehicle manoeuvrings in servicing the development site. In terms of parking and the potential impact relative to parking adequacy on the site, each of the components address the necessary requirements under the planning framework, with the exception of visitor parking. That visitor parking has been presented in a reciprocal fashion based on the land uses on the site and the nature of those activities. The assessment and the degree of departure in relation to visitor parking has been considered appropriate in this context, and is intended to be managed through a condition relating to parking management on a basis. Construction traffic and parking has been highlighted in today's deputation. Typically, this matter is addressed through a construction management plan, which is prepared post-determination. This allows us to work with the city, the builder and the proponent to ensure construction traffic through the various phases of construction is appropriately managed. To that end, that covers off all the matters that are noted. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. I think you have covered off all of those matters. I just thought, given that Mr. Rouse is not here anymore, but we'll be able to have access to this live stream on review. He did raise a concern about his particular home on the corner of Martinique and Coslenk. Having looked at the overshadowing diagrams in the development application, I can't see that that does have an impact. The applicant expressed the same view, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity to comment.
Through the chair, I can confirm the impact on that property there isn't any impact on that property when it occurs on the south side. It's the properties on the south side of Hepburn Avenue that are mostly could be affected by the proposed development.
Thank you. The other question might be around the reciprocal parking arrangement between the commercial and the residential. Are you confident that that can be articulated well in a parking management plan to ensure that there is clear delineation and operation between residents and visitors?
Through the chair, in many mixed use contexts, management plan is a mechanism to understand how the site will be managed and ensure that compliance. There's a mechanism to ensure compliance with moving into the future.
Thank you. Members, over to you for questions. Commissioner Lakey.
Favourite topic is the podium and the way that particularly the west building comes to the ground level and integrates, and the comments particularly through the SDRP, and noting the comments that I wonder if you could provide some thoughts on it.
Through the chair, the advice received from SDRP was considered ultimately and did inform some of the recommended conditions in condition 3 itself. Through the planning assessment, however, and the contextual location of the site on the corner, immediately on the corner, felt that the continuation of the podium would require some considerable rework, and that in that context it didn't necessarily warrant that degree of modification. The podium and the materials that have been presented following that final DR are considered an improvement to that forecourt public space area, and don't necessarily feel that it necessitates it wrapping all the way around the building.
Just on that, it is worth mentioning that under the questions from members and responses under 1.5.1 and 3.3, there's some wording there that does talk to updating the treatment on the western and southern elevations of the Western Tower to achieve a stronger three-dimensional expression that connects with the podium expression to the south, responding more effectively to the surrounding context and the public nature of the public plaza activity that has been shared. There's no obligation to move or set as an amendment, but it is there if members wish to contemplate it. Members, other questions on the item? Anything further? All right, then we have a recommendation before us. Is there a mover and seconder for the recommendation? Yes, moved by Member Harmon, seconded by Commissioner Lakey. Do you wish to discuss?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Obviously, a development of this scale can often be quite jarring, I guess, when looking at it in isolation, but when you look at it in the context of locality and the surroundings, I mean, and then the process been through 5 RP meetings, I understand a lot of that has been at the request of the applicant, which a significant amount of work and evolution of the plans occurred. The site itself, there is sort of approximately 330 square metres of frontage to this site, but only 75 metres or so actually adjoins residents, which is quite unique. The remainder of it is major roads and large POS to the north. So that lends itself to a greater intensity of development, and the overshadowing speaks to that. It falls almost exactly where you'd want it to fall, over the intersection and over the road. So I think I'm relatively comfortable in that regard. The site also falls and sits quite a bit lower than the site on Delos Way that was approved previously. So the additional height here as compared to that one, I think, is justified. Context. Commercial component, I mean, the site's identified as a local centre. small supermarket, a liquor store, and a cafe is almost exactly the type of land uses you'd expect to see in a local centre. So I don't have a major issue with that. So all in all, and taking into consideration everything that we've heard today and read, I'm happy to support the proposal.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lakey, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I won't repeat what Commissioner Member Harman has said, but I think the structure plan is certainly very outdated. And it's hard to see the relevance today. And council's only just instigated a process. So we have to deal with this site on its own merits. We identified this as a landmark site, and it has been vacant for many years, which indicates to me that we need to do something different with this site. I have considered all the matters raised and also the extensive design review process that has been undertaken in 5 meetings with the SDIP and also the government architect. I'm satisfied that design is well considered. Matters such as the shadowing, traffic, public access to the plaza have been addressed appropriately. With regard to the podium, I'm also satisfied with the discussion, feedback from the proponent, the plans, and also the discussion we've had today. I think that the conditions that we have in place are appropriate to deal with that interface at ground level. I also note that this is going to provide much needed housing diversity and amenity to the local community. I'm taking all of this into consideration. I'm supportive of this.
Very much. Any further comments? Thank you, Commissioner Adair.
Thanks, Chair. I'm actually going to speak against the item, recognising that it's quite likely to go through. But for me, on a previous matter that was considered today, the comment was made that context and history should not be ignored. And I think on this one, that's an important consideration as well. This part of Hillary's was planned and developed by EDC, and it was guided as an interpretation of seaside Florida. And it's a new urbanist development. I've visited Seaside, and I have to say that this proposal in no way reflects that kind of vision. Yes, it's identified as a landmark site. Landmarks in that kind of vision visual references and terminating vistas. And this is the last piece of the puzzle to complete the picture of that overall development. I don't believe that it fits that context. As the applicant has said, it's been a long process and it's always been envisaged. I don't believe it was ever envisaged this way. In isolation, I have no problem actually with the design, and I think it addresses a number of the concerns that have been raised, but it's too much for me as a departure from the adopted framework and the established scale of the area, which was master planned and developed as such. It's inconsistent in my mind with proper and orderly planning, given the extent of development that has already occurred with that vision. So on those grounds, I'm supportive of the application as it's presented.
Thank you, Commissioner Adair. Are there any other comments? Thank you, Member Franklin.
Thank you, through the chair. I would like to also concur with the sentiments expressed by Commissioner Adair in regards to this particular development. I still believe that a framework is in place, albeit it is now under review, but I think the local authority is actively seeking a more intensive use of the land and is making measures to implement that. I believe that the development as it stands, whilst it has merits in regards to some form of its design, is beyond the bulk and scale that was anticipated for this estate. And very much the livable neighbourhoods style and urban development, which is now almost at 90% of that estate. So on that basis, I will not be supporting this proposal.
Thank you very much, Member Franklin. Members, are there any other comments? I'll speak to the item. Look, I would like to address the structure plan. We are talking about a residential precinct that was established in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I think in addressing the structure plan extension the Commission was clear to the City of Joondalup that we'd like to see the normalisation of the suburban single dwellings, and that we do need that these two landmark sites to be treated separately. They need to be addressed in terms of their coding and density, and I think is a really critical point to be made, in that these sites that have remained undeveloped for 30 years, that are sitting on the major district distributors and overlooking Hillary's Marina, are very different in their context, and that they have not been able to realise development. Or we dealt with Delos Way before the SPC last year. And I think that did set the intent that we'd like to see for these sites in addressing that matter and that structure plan back to City of Joondalup. Obviously, they have formed a view on what that coding should look like, and that is seriously entertained at this stage, given that has not been advertised at this point. Look, this is a really great location for enhanced density. As I said, it's on the intersection of West Coast Highway, Whitworth Avenue, Hepburn, dual carriageway district distributors, a major intersection. It's immediately overlooking the Hillary's Boat Harbour, which is a district centre, one of the greatest tourism hubs in Perth, and is set for its own review in terms of what happens there. Look, I do want to acknowledge that we did have a large number of submissions on this application, at 614 submissions, majority are opposed, and there's no doubt that critical issue has been the height and scale. I do think we need to look at that in terms of how the height and scale is treated. We have a merit assessment that's been conducted by Paola and Kimberly for us, and I think that they have demonstrated that whilst there is height here, that the way in which the development has been executed, and particularly I think in that last in the DR design review 4, where there was this decision to separate the towers, has had quite a substantial reduction in impact, and has led to there being no overshadowing to the surrounding neighbours to the east, with the overshadowing falling to the intersection, which, as Member Harmon pointed out, is the best place for the overshadowing to go. I do think that a lot of the design issues have been worked through in that very intensive design review process. We don't often see applicants put their hand up and say we'd like to go beyond what is usually a maximum of 3 design reviews. They've opted to take it further and be really responsive to the advice. And it was good to see the applicant acknowledge today that has resulted in a much better outcome. It's really good to hear applicants working so productively and constructively with the design review panel in that way. I do think this site can accommodate the proposed density. We've heard from Main Roads in relation to the ability for the local and district distributor roads to be able to tolerate this. And we are looking at introducing some good amenity through this development in terms of the public plaza and some facilities through the commercial element. It's worth pointing out that multiple dwellings are a discretionary use and that they can be envisaged, and that the only land use that's not considered under the structure plan is that liquor store, and that has been considered to be very small in scale and appropriate for a local centre. I think the car parking has been highlighted with an allocation of 2 bays per apartment is generous, and we do have the parking management plan requirement to ensure that reciprocal parking arrangement works in a functional way to address visitor parking. Traffic has also been considered, 137 additional vehicle trips. As mentioned, Main Roads has indicated that can be accommodated without causing issues for the local or district network. And just again pointing out that Paola has already mentioned that there are a number of conditions attached to this proposed approval, dealing with further design refinement at condition 3, looking at materials and finishes at conditions 9 and 10, dealing with wind impact assessment, and a public art strategy, which has been accepted as beneficial to development by the applicant. So I do want to note that concerns of the community. We've heard a number of deputations today, and I think they have represented their views very well and been very clear about what they are. But I think that when we work through the report and the questions that have been asked today, I do believe that we have been able to demonstrate that the impacts have been addressed, and that this is a addition to diverse housing choice in this location. Members, are there any further comments? Is there any dissent? Thank you. Noting Commissioner Adair, Member Franklin are dissenting. I do declare the item carried. Thank you, Kimberly. The next item, 3.4, is the Part 11B development application for Depot Apartments at lots 14 to 19 Canning Highway, East Fremantle, for determination. If we could just pause for a moment here. We do have an issue I just have to talk to Jonathan about. Did want to make a deputation on this item. It appears that when she received the email from us, that the wrong date was included on that email for the meeting date. We have been asked to consider her making that deputation at this point. Normally I would not support this, but I do think that we probably need to recognise that there was an error made in the email provided. So are you happy for us to allow a 3-minute deputation at this point? Thank you.
Be moved or?
No, I think that we can just determine that amongst ourselves.
Let Frank call very briefly. I'll return.
Okay. Speak to
I look forward.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's consideration.
Shut down. Mine. I had a review.
Pressing it before we start.
Okay, so are we starting at slide 1?
Yes.
Yes, okay, so this is just a formal submission on behalf of a large cohort of residents from the East Street precinct, which covers both East Fremantle and Fremantle, given that that's the border of the suburb, and also Glyde Street and some of Canning Highway and other streets within the Plimpton ward. Well, I understand that some of the primary grounds for objection are not planning matters, so I will skip over the opportunity costs, the inappropriate housing mix slides, but I would like to, if you go straight to what will be the gateway to the top tourism town, I would just like to point out that protecting the character of the Plimpton ward and the architectural heritage that we do have in the area is very important to us as residents. And it is something that is part of the appeal of Fremantle, and it is the gateway where it is positioned to Fremantle. It is East Street's where Fremantle starts. It's got a beautiful rainbow and a $500 million bridge that's currently being constructed. In terms of the critical infrastructure deficit, on-site parking has not been properly allowed for in this development. As far as I'm aware, the proposal provides for 17 parking bays for 34 dwellings. Then relying on street parking, which is already completely full. Already lots of houses in the area that don't have off-street parking on both East Street and Glyde Street. Therefore, there currently is no car spaces for overflow parking for any visitors or people that don't get a car space within the build. Waste management. Obviously, as someone who lives on East Street, I don't think that from my personal experience with the traffic, it's appropriate for rubbish trucks to be coming on a frequent basis and doing a 3-point turn right next to the intersection of East Street and Canning Highway. Cars do come very fast down Canning Highway, and they do take that corner very, very quickly, which is not something a traffic survey would have taken account of. And so they are coming around that corner at speed. The other thing that I think is really important from the community perspective is the management and the tenant accountability. We have actually organised a meeting previously with Foundation Housing in addition to their community outreach program in a park. They came and gave us some information. There was really nothing concrete that they could provide us in terms of a procedure as to how tenants are going to be managed. And they're sort of our main things that I would like to cover off just from a community perspective.
Jacqueline, thank you very much for that. Members, are there any questions of Jacqueline on her deputation? Go ahead, Commissioner Heron.
Yes, thank you for your deputation. In terms of the street parking, can I ask, does that area currently have parking permits? And is that issued by? No, okay.
There's no parking permits, but there are especially down that end of the street, there's there's a lot of those older houses that are built very close to the street, and there's small workers' cottages, and they don't have any off-street parking at all. So you're probably talking, there's at least 4 or 5 houses that are in a row that don't have any off-street parking, and they're family-sized houses. They're people that have more than one car, and they're all parked out front on East Street. And then also the fact that the setback from Canning Highway is quite long because cars and trucks and things do take that corner quite quickly. There is quite a big no parking zone off on East Street off Canning Highway.
Yeah, thank you for that. Just another, in terms of the entrance statement, I mean, being somewhat familiar with the locality, I mean, the proposed development is definitely a substantial improvement from what was there previously.
Yes, I can't argue with that.
Yeah, so in terms of, is from an architectural, is it the scale, is it the building form that is of concern there?
Yes, I'm not sure if, there was an image that I had in my presentation that was of, there's another building that I go and that's up on the corner of, I think it's Blinko Street, or no, Knutsford Street, sorry, further up in Fremantle, not far from where we are. And to be honest, it's just a very similar building. And what we're really concerned about is the balconies and the sun that's going to come into those balconies. People put up shades and all sorts of things to try and stop the sun and shade their rooms, which is, fair enough, because the sun does come in very hard there in summer and it can be quite hot. But you end up with all these shades erected and it's just going to end up looking terrible.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any other questions for Jacqueline? Jacqueline, I'd like to apologise that you received the wrong meeting date in the email, but I hope you do feel that you've accommodated and we will discuss some of the issues that you've raised because we have not yet deliberated on the item.
Right. All right. Thank you so much.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Normally, like that was before the applicant.
Yes, I'm just going to go to Trent. Trent, just because we would normally give you the right of reply to any deputations made, are there any matters there that you feel that we must respond to?
Do you feel I should?
I don't feel that there are. But I just wanted to give you the opportunity if there was anything critical.
Only a really quick point. East Street.
You just come forward then.
Sorry. Just in relation to vehicles accessing East Street, it does have speed bumps pretty much the way up the street. There's one directly in front of over, so we see that as a mitigating factor for that issue. And just on the shading of the glaze.
Before you leave that, and the traffic generation numbers are so low for this building that in fact the impact on East Street is really minimal. So that's what we modelled by the traffic engineers, and the rubbish truck issues have been, sweep paths been done, it'll be a managed system, we would have control over the time of that. So, really, it is the better outcome than Gly Street, which is a more residential, which I think was the alternative.
And look, you've got a condition 10 on the balconies, which I think goes to that other issue about enclosure of balconies or, treatments and furnishings that could change the design and appearance of the balconies.
Yes, the glazing is also set in from the facade line, so there'll be some shading achieved there as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Right, so we're now going to consider the item. The Part 11B application for the proposed residential apartments at lot 14 to 19 Canning Highway in East Fremantle for determination. And Paola and DePerna and Rachel Bridges are joining us. Oh no, not Rachel. That's what it says here. Jessica, my apologies. Jessica is here to join us today. Paola and Jessica, you've heard the deputations today. Would you like to address any matters raised or any key issues that you'd like to highlight in the report?
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of matters. In terms of some of the questions that were asked earlier relative to the landscaping in the road reserve, just to reaffirm that the setbacks and landscaping requirements and the R codes are achieved within the development site, excluding the land which is reserved. The Main Roads has provided some commentary in regards to the use of that land until such time that it's required for road purposes and is supportive of landscaping and structures, and that's what is presented in the development plans. In terms of the water management condition and the removal for reference, typically Main Roads is included as a reference point for land which abuts road reserves within their control to ensure that there's no impact on, in this case, Canning Highway. In regards to referral processes, the department through the State Referral Coordination Unit has quite a efficient referral process and engagement with state agencies, and we would expect that if as outlined earlier, that on-site water management is contemplated and to be maintained, that referral process will be fairly efficient and succinct. In terms of the car parking and the parking numbers, the report details comprehensively the site's location and as a base for which it's most appropriate to support the parking shortfall. There is a very low vehicle generation rate. The traffic impact assessment does highlight 17 vehicle trips both in the morning and afternoon, representing less than 10% of the existing peak traffic. And so it's not anticipated to adversely affect either traffic volumes or traffic flows within that immediate locality. Because of the high frequency bus route and bicycle connectivity, there's a stronger focus, and there are conditions which speak to upgrades to footpaths as a result of the reliance on that aspect of the development. In relation to the comments on conditions, commission members or committee members have been provided with the department's response to those modifications more broadly. Just to reaffirm, the site is located within the floodplain development control area, not located within the floodplain, just to provide some clarity around that aspect. Whilst it is a model condition that the department uses relative to stormwater management and it's to do with the sediment management plan. Sorry, I just couldn't find it in the list. They are model conditions in regards to sediment management. So it affects the Swan River management area. It is open to the committee to incorporate those elements into the construction management plan, should it feel that it is most appropriate to do so rather than a standalone condition. Relative to the sustainability element and condition, the department's assessment considered the information as provided by the applicant, including the sustainability report, which was submitted in support of the proposal. On that basis, whilst we acknowledge the applicant's comment as it being intentional in demonstrating intent as to what it could achieve in terms of aspirational, in the context of the proposal, it's what was presented to us as what they are intending to deliver, and the condition has been worded in that way based on what was presented as part of the assessment of the application. We're satisfied it meets the valid test, the test of a valid planning condition. However, we note that it is open to the committee to either modify the rating or to remove the condition altogether, noting that in doing so, it may not address the RCode's element in achieving a 0.5 standard higher than what would have been delivered. That end, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Pal. So just to recap on the 3 condition requests. So your view is that you see the that 22A as drafted to be appropriate. 22A. It says 22A in the applicant submission. The 23A. 23A. In terms of the referral on the stormwater management, were you comfortable with the deletion of main roads and DBCA?
We would prefer they be retained and they're facilitated through the referral court unit.
And you weren't comfortable with the delete 18? Right. Status quo. All right. Okay. Members, open to you now for questions. Thank you very much, Member Harman.
Chair, and just a minor one in terms of the referral to main roads and DBCA. What is it that we'd be asking them for? Because my understanding is we're talking about stormwater being retained on site, which the applicants confirmed that they would be doing. There's no road upgrades external to the site that would require main roads further input. They've both seen it as part of the DA process. Like, is there is there a need to go back unless something changes?
I suppose that's part of the inbuilt nature of the condition. We would establish with the State Referral Coordination Unit if there's any departure from what has been presented to us that would warrant a full engagement with Main Roads. I suppose the advantage of the unit, it takes the view of a pragmatic view of our referral processes and has a established understanding with the referral agencies as to what particular elements need full referral and what may need an informal discussion with them. We liaise with them directly in that approach and satisfy ourselves that either a full referral is required or just put some preliminary comments or to reaffirm that what's been presented in terms of volumes and that there's sufficient capacity on site in more technical drawings, including the hydrology aspects once the working drawings are finalised.
So just as a follow-on from that, thank you for that. Would that occur regardless of whether the condition was there or not? That liaison?
If it's there, it would trigger the discussional referral. If it's not there, it wouldn't prevent us from still liaising with them. However, it just assists in providing clarity around those engagement referral processes that have been established with the agencies.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Heron?
Yeah, thank you for that. In terms of the 23A issue, and fully accepting and understanding why the condition is imposed based on the report submitted, I'm just wanting to understand if a minimum 6.5 star rating for all units is maintained, that would still be, well, it's still open to us to make that a determination, and that wouldn't be anything ultra vires, is my understanding. Is that correct?
Through the chair, the 7-star rating under the NCC is the baseline. So you would be accepting a standard, sustainability standard less than what the NCC would otherwise contemplate. Whilst that might be acceptable from a planning perspective, there would still be an obligation on the proposal to achieve compliance with the NCC standard.
Thank you. Through the chair, and it was also going to be my follow-up question, is because there are other mechanisms which deal with some of that. I'm just mindful in terms of the underlying intent versus ensuring that we don't overcomplicate our processes. But again, fully understand why what has been put forward. But so you're suggesting that if there were to be a variation, it would be going to 7-star as opposed to 6.5. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it would be 7.5. The R codes contemplates 0.5 above the baseline, which in this case, the baseline would be 7-star.
Thank you.
For that, members, any other questions on the item? Right, thank you. If I could then have a mover and seconder for the item. Moved by Commissioner Brooks, seconded by Commissioner Heron. Open for discussion.
I'm happy to support this development. I think it's a good design for and a good location. I listened to all of the deputations and the discussion, and I think that the issues that have been raised have been adequately covered by the conditions and by the consideration of design through the design review panel. In relation to the conditions and the requests for amendments, I'm supportive of the referral process as it stands, going to the BCA management plan. And I don't see that would extend timeframes. In relation to the sediment and erosion management plan, rolling it up into the construction management to be considered. I'd be comfortable with that, although there are some other changes to conditions that would be necessary. to accommodate that, and I don't see it as necessary. I think in my experience, where there's two different conditions asking for two plans to be prepared, if you want to make them into one document and cover them all in one go, that's open to do that, and can be usually achieved without too much difficulty. Consideration of the referral agency, so I don't see that as being a particular issue. In relation to the sustainability, I'd encourage to go for the stretch target and would be supportive of the condition as it stands.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Brooks. Commissioner Heron. Okay, if you like.
Yes, I'm very supportive of the proposal. I think it is a significant positive attribute to the locality and to housing delivery more generally. It's appropriate elevation of use of what is otherwise underutilised government land. I would also suggest that it will help assist in maintaining the fundamental fabric of Fremantle as a general locality in terms of diversity of population. I think also that the design is well considered and reconciled, and that there is more than ample information available which demonstrates the parking provision is suitable. From what was presented, I would suggest that if there are any ongoing parking issues, it's probably based on the number of properties that don't have any parking available at all, and a licensing system might need to be considered by the local government, but that's for others to determine at the appropriate point in time. I am supportive of the responses that have been provided in relation to the conditions. However, in the only one that I would seek whether there is any support of is in relation to 23A, making a change as per the applicant's request. However, the minimum being 7.5 star as opposed to 6.5 star as is within their deputation.
Would you like to put that?
Yes.
It's actually 22.
Yeah, it is 22A in the recommendation.
Seconded by Commissioner Adair. Is there any discussion? Is there any dissent? Thank you. That amendment is carried. Go back to the substantive as amended. Is there any further amendments or any further discussion? Go ahead, Member Knight.
Thank you. Look, I would also just like to express support for the proposal. I think the provision of social housing so very important. I think all the aspect is going to be an investment definitely, but for the residents. And I would also just like to acknowledge the public art in the brick.
That was very nice element to the design. I'd also concur the public art has been well managed, and I think reflective of the local history and context, which is very nice to see. Concur with everything that's been said beforehand, but also I think on this we have had, you know, some more support. We do have, noting 56.2% have opposed, but there is support for this development from the public as well. And I think apart from a few issues that the town raised, they are also on as an appropriate scale and design for this location. Any further comments? Go ahead.
Given 11. Yes, I would like to support behind this. I think it's a well considered design. The height and the in the context is really good transition between the existing uses and a much needed outcome for this site. Now, I think, I support all the comments that have been made about it being an appropriate mix and diversity of land use within this area. I believe the traffic issues that have been raised are resolved in the answers that we've been provided, and I think I look forward to seeing it actually in place.
Okay, any further comments? Any dissent? Thank you very much. The item is carried. Thank you very much, Paola and Jessica. Conclude our non-confidential items for decision today. We do have 2 confidential items remaining, so we'll have to request that we go behind closed doors to consider those items, and if I could have a mover and seconder to close the meeting to members of the public. Thank you. Move Commissioner Brooks, seconded Commissioner Dare. Any dissent? Thank you. That's carried.